Hi everyone and welcome to SIANI's Annual Meeting 2025. My name is Alice Thunfjord and I'm an associate at SIANI and SEI. And I would like to start today by welcoming Cecilia Nordin van Gansberghe, who is SIANI's chair, for some welcoming remarks.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I hope everybody can hear me. Yes, no problem. It's a small room anyway. Dear SIANI friends, followers and subscribers, online and in the room, it is really both an honor and a pleasure to be able to welcome you here today in these very uncertain and fast-moving times that we live in. Who would have thought, for instance, that USAID, one of the cornerstones of international global assistance, would just cease to be as the result of a pen stroke by the new US administration. This rewrites the map and frees up space for other actors. Since a number of years, there has been discussion about resilience as a key component of stable development. At times, I have felt that there was no great understanding of the concept. Now, however, with the world events that we have seen, it has moved to the forefront. Here in Sweden, not only military but civil preparedness is high on the agenda as the situation becomes increasingly more concerning, as we heard yesterday. What can organizations and individuals do to affront the next crisis? Because there surely will be one. But the challenge is to know what shape it will take. This has led to a deeper discussion of where our food comes from and the vital importance of sustainability and resilience of our food systems. A more thorough understanding of how global food systems work is furthered by, for instance, the recent Facebook initiative of replacing US food items with non-US food items to protest against the policies of the new US administration. To be able to make these choices, you need to research the chain that brings you the food and thus increase the knowledge. As you will remember, the UN Secretary General convened a food systems summit in 2021 to discuss sustainable food systems, which are key in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Every second year, there is a follow-up. This year in July, it will happen in Ethiopia. A majority of countries have put together a plan, but one difficulty in implementation is financing, which is one of the topics that will be discussed in Addis Ababa. The Committee on Food Security, meeting this autumn, also takes up this aspect with its theme, Finance for Resilience, for a Resilient Future, Inclusion, Innovation and Impact. These threads are woven together in today's theme of building resilient food systems. During the day, we will get a good overview of the many aspects of today's food systems, from an environment angle, how researchers view the topic, what are the challenges for the farmer, and connecting food systems to landscape. We will also have a section on the SIANI expert groups and their activity, which is a personal favorite of mine. Throughout the day, we will all have the chance to contribute based on our experiences and perspectives, and I really hope that we will see a lot of vivid and giving discussions. Finally, it is better to light a small light than to curse the darkness. Building resilient and sustainable food systems is a task demanding more time than one presidential period. Also, a week is a long time in politics. Things might change for the better quite soon, if there is a political will. Thank you for your kind attention. I wish us all a very fruitful day. Thank you. Ebba, the floor is yours.
Hi, My name is Ebba, and I work at SIANI as a project coordinator. And yeah, I'm gonna introduce a small warm-up exercise. So everyone that has a phone can scan the QR code and then put in the code. And then there will be 2 questions to answer. Yeah, you can see there's already a couple of answers. Just a representation of all of the different organizations, schools, and companies that we have here today. Yeah, and we can see that there's a lot of people from SLU and SCI. Yeah. But we also have a lot of other organizations and schools. So that's very fun to see.
Yes, diversity.
Yeah, that's very nice. I don't know if everyone can see, but we have Sida as well. We have We Effect, Jönköping University, Afrikagrupperna, Swedish government, Salvation Army, Hand in Hand, Islamic Relief, Swedish Red Cross. Alnarp's agroecology farm is also quite big. Yeah, the bigger the bigger the word, the more people has written it. So yeah, I think that might be everyone. We have 54 responses, so thank you all for answering. There will be one more question that you can answer now. And it will show on the screen as soon as you answer the question. Okay, so the answers are coming in, and yeah, it was really nice to see that the biggest word so far is hope. And inspiration, new insights, new friends, new contacts, feeling of community, seeds, more knowledge, positivity.
Thank you, Ebba.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you everyone for being so patient. As I said, we're now moving on to the morning presentations. And you have the possibility to ask the presenters some clarifying questions after each presentation. But we do encourage you to ask longer or more detailed questions to each speaker when you meet him or her throughout the day, and really connect with the speakers as well. Our first speaker today is Ola Möller. And he's a policy specialist at Sida. And he will start this day by telling us about topics around environment, climate, and food systems at Sida. Welcome, Ola.
Thank you very much. Right, my name is Ola, and you're welcome to contact me or discuss with me anytime after this presentation if there is anything you want to discuss further. I have a short time span, and there is a lot of things going on in Swedish Development Cooperation, a lot of things going on in Sida, as you might have read during the last few days in the newspapers. So I will try to limit my presentation to the time allocated for my presentation, but if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me later on. I'm Ola, as I said. I work at the policy unit at Sida in Stockholm. I've been working with Sida for about 30 years now. I'm an agronomist by profession as a background. I've been working in Stockholm and in the field a lot. Right. Can I have the next slide, please? Oh, so I have to use this. Okay, thanks. And I point it there, and there, yeah. So this was my first slide. Let's move on to the next one. Sida, during the last year, Sida has gone through quite a lot of development, I might say. The main thing that happened last year was that the government presented the reform agenda for Swedish development cooperation, development aid. And in Sida, we have been working with a lot in sort of adjusting to this reform agenda. This process is still ongoing. Part of this process is also that we have gone through quite a substantial reorganization within Sida. This is organogram of the setup. We have operational departments that are either supporting our embassies or having the responsibility for activities in Stockholm. And then we have support units where we, among others, have the thematic policy support unit where I'm working. And this is a slightly different setup than that we used to have before, trying to sort of clarify for the organization where the responsibility rests, and implementing activities is within the operational departments, and then we have the support units, as I said. But more importantly, I think, and as it's rather new, I need to read this so I get it right, is that in this new organization with this setup, we also have a different way to approach development cooperation. So we are moving away from strategy governance when it comes to implementing activities, planning, follow-up, to a more geographic focus on how we design and implement our cooperation. Different strategies should take the starting point from a geography rather than strategy focus, and harnessing synergies is becoming more crucial for Sida to contribute to the Team Sweden approach. As I'm sure you all know, we used to have bilateral strategies, regional strategies, global strategies. We still have that, but the focus is now more on how can we have a geographical focus where we can realize synergies between these strategies. So the starting point is more a geographical focus to find where different strategies can have an added value in the development cooperation that Sida is funding. This is part of a new approach that Sida is taking in dialogue with our partners, be it countries, organizations, different partners. We are now developing what is called a development offer, which consists of the multidimensional poverty analysis, which we used to have. But then it comes, then the geographical focus comes in, where we try to see how can the different strategies that Sida is implementing complement each other to this partner or this country. And also, we are also more underlying the Swedish perspective in this. What comparative advantages had Sweden with this partner, with this country, and try to weigh in more on those aspects. This is rather new. We have so far as I know, only finalized or are in the process of finalizing the first development offer, which is being developed together with the team in Uganda. But this is the new approach that we will then implement in all other countries, corporations, and so on. That is one of the big ongoing processes. The second one I want to mention, and that is that we used to have something that we call the perspectives on poverty, that each contribution should weigh in perspectives in that contribution. If we have a contribution focusing on democracy or human rights or education, we should also think about the perspectives on climate, on perspectives on poverty reduction, and so on. This is now something that we are leaving, and instead we are instructed to weigh in everything that is relevant within this thematic field. we are still sort of in the process of defining how do we do this. I think the perspectives was a very good tool. Now it's time to sort of take the next step and improve this further. But we will come back. We are not really finalized in that work yet. And I think, though, that it is important in the analysis to weigh in different aspects in order to make sure that the development cooperation is really efficient. Next slide, please. Moving on to, sorry. Let's, no. There. So moving on, what we have now in Sida's operational strategy for 2024 to 2026. We have 7 different targets, one of them being that we should have increased and more efficient climate aid. And here we have, within this overall target, we have 3 main focuses, I would say. The first one being to have reduced greenhouse gas emissions, contribute to reducing loss of biodiversity, and increase resilience to climate change. Secondly, we should support activities focusing on fossil-free energy and energy efficiency. We should focus on adaptation measures to climate change. And very important, I think, is to integrate environment and climate in all Sida's activities. We have had mixed success in that during the years, but I think this is important to have clearly written into Sida's operational strategy that everyone should consider the effects of environment and climate change in their operations. And third and last, development aid should work more with the potential to mobilize capital to speed up the process of transition. And in that light also look at resource mobilization in cooperation with Swedish actors based on their area of expertise and added value. And this is an example of where this aspect, which I was mentioning before, of Swedish interest weighs a bit more in our work now and in the future than maybe it used to do previously. One organizational change within Sida is that we are trying to streamline activities, as I said, to clarify that operational departments, they have and embassies, they have the responsibility to implement activities. And then we have the support functions. So all people like me, advisors, we are put in one thematic unit, or actually thematic unit support function. We are 3 different, anyway. We have then the responsibility to give operational support to all embassies and implementing departments in Stockholm. We are also responsible for managing the activities we do for government-assigned missions, regleringsbrevs, letter of appropriation missions, and so on. And we are also responsible for knowledge and learning within the organization. Yes. Finally, coming to where do agriculture and food systems fit into all this? This is now more of a personal reflection rather than specific detailed instructions within the Sida organization. From my perspective, I think agriculture and food systems have a vital and truly important role in all development cooperation in the future. I'm quite certain, not least with the knowledge that from our embassies, especially in Africa, agriculture and food security is a priority. We will still work with poverty reduction, food security, income generation, and so on in the context of rural development, agriculture, and continue having these kind of targeted interventions within the field of agriculture. And when I say agriculture, I mean it from a very broad perspective. It's not only crop production, it's animal husbandry, small-scale aquaculture, fisheries, agroforestry, post-harvest production, value-added sequences, all of this. I also think that we within Sida, it will be a continued focus within the field of private sector development, a continued focus on entrepreneurship, training people in becoming entrepreneurs within rural development and agriculture and food systems. But I also think that we need to think in new ways, in new methods and new areas. I think it's becoming much better my writing is really bad here. Yes, what I think is that we need to become much better in or improve our work in showing that agriculture can be a tool to achieve basically all the other Agenda 2030 targets. That it's something that can be integrated in so many ways to support the implementation of different of activities in completely different fields of work. I think we need to, many years ago I used to call it, we need to work undercover, and it's not really undercover. I think you know what I mean. We need to show that by working with agriculture from a broad perspective, there's a huge potential to contribute to whatever we are doing with that contribution's main focus. I list a publication here from FAO, which I think is a splendid example of this thinking, where they list 20 examples on how you work within different SDG targets, not SDG 2, but other SDG targets, but working with agriculture as a tool to achieve that target. It can be inclusive societies, it can be peace and security, and so on. I think we need to show why should people work more with food systems and agriculture. There are huge potential to increase this. I'm not saying that there is a sort of a competitive balance between having contributions or supporting activities where main focus is improved food security, but I'm talking about complementary here. 10 minutes? Yes? Okay. So I think why not think about taking the way we in Sweden integrated gender thinking in all what we have been doing for the last 20, 30, 40 years. Taking that as an example, showing why agriculture and food systems are so important in many other areas as well. You are the expert. You know, I hope at least you know what I mean here. We have this potential, and we are the one who have to show that. We also have to think new outside the box, how to say, to use a slightly worn down expression. Sometimes sitting at home in Skogstibbe, I think about these ringar we have at Facebook. You know, these Facebook groups where you link producers with consumers. Perfect setup. Why don't we work more with those things? I know that there is such activities in some places around the world, but those are perfect. Perfect. We have digitalization. We can work with the youth. We avoid all these middle hand that take a lot of money. So I think we need to think about that. We have a lot of good experiences in Sweden that if we tweak it a little bit, we can use it also in the work we are doing in poverty reduction. Right, sorry for this rather quick rambling of different aspects, but I'm more than happy to discuss this further during the meeting today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ola, for a great presentation. And I really like the part of integrating food systems and agriculture into everything we do. And I think SIANI as a network with all the potential and different areas that we work in really can play this role. In the interest of time, we're moving on, but please grab Ola during the break, which is only in 20 minutes, if you have any questions for him. Next, I would like to welcome Clara Fischer, who's the senior lecturer at SLU, who will talk about resilient food systems from a researcher's perspective. Welcome, Clara.
Thank you.
And that's the clicker for you.
Thank you. I'm just gonna since Ola was struggling with this, I just want to make sure that it works. Yes, hi everyone. So I was tasked to talk about resilient food systems from a researcher's perspective, and that's a very broad topic. And I thought I have 10 minutes. I cannot really summarize my research in any relevant way here, so I choose to speak about one thing. So I will describe some findings from a research project that we have on how sustainable agriculture is framed in research. So I will talk about sustainable agriculture and not resilient agriculture. But I would say that being resilient is being able to navigate uncertainty. And resilient food systems then would be food systems that can deliver food to everyone and livelihoods to farmers also under changing and uncertain circumstances. And sustainability, on the other hand, is I would say maybe living today in a way that makes good living possible also in the future for humans and other beings. And this, I think, means that a resilient food system needs to be sustainable as well. So resilience and sustainability are entangled. And this we can see not the least in the invitation to today's meeting. So in the invitation to the meeting today, it says that there is an increasing urgent need to transform our food system to be more resilient and inclusive. How do we get there? How can SIANI network come together and contribute? The annual meeting is an opportunity to network, share ideas, and exchange experiences to further rights-based and sustainable food systems. So I would say that everyone in the SIANI network and everywhere else, probably, at least the vast majority of people, agree that we need resilient and inclusive food systems. But indeed, just like the question here in the invitation, how do we get there? And more precisely, I would say that people don't agree with what sustainable food systems are, and they don't agree on how to get there. And also, scientists don't agree about this. So there's no use turning to science to find out. And I will talk a little bit more about that. Maybe there is some relevance to turn to science. So I investigated with a group of researchers how sustainable agriculture is talked about in research. And much research that investigates sustainability in agriculture talks about either agroecology or sustainable intensification. And we describe these two different bodies of research as silos in our paper, and this is what this picture represents. And this is because these two different spheres of research, what we found was that they hardly interact with each other. And I will not talk about how we designed the study or anything like that here. I will just try to summarize the conclusions. So if you want to know more about the study, you can ask me later. But to the left in the picture, you see a sort of stereotype representation of agroecology. We can see what the Alnarp agroecology farm thinks about it. But I would say that agroecology sees sustainable agriculture as diverse smallholder farming systems in a very summarized way. And to the right, you see sustainable intensification, which focuses on how to raise yields and feed a growing population while reducing environmental impact. So this is a table from our paper, and it summarizes the key tenets of the respective discourse, agricultural discourse or research field. So in agroecology, I will not read the whole table, but I will just tell you about the problems and the solutions that they talk about. In agroecology, the main problem to be solved is seen as the dominance of industrial monoculture farming, which has led to the erosion of biodiversity and loss of traditional local knowledges. And in sustainable intensification, the main problem to be solved is a growing world population and increased demand for meat in developing countries, which increases the pressure on producing food. And as a result of having different problem formulations, these two spheres of research also have different solutions to their problems. So in agroecology, the solution, in a very summarized way, is learning from and supporting traditional farmers to keep diverse farming systems and maintain traditional knowledge. And in sustainable intensification, the solution is to increase yields in regions where yields are low due to low adoption of modern seed and fertilizer, and reduce environmental impact through new tools for precision agriculture. So, in summary, we found in our paper that agroecology research and sustainable intensification research make different prioritizations about what they find important to study. And as a result, and they use different theories and different methods to study what they think is important. And as a result, they come to different conclusions about how to achieve sustainable agriculture. And importantly, both research strands also deliver partial conclusions, but this is not something that they talk about. So both strands, I would say, are unclear about how choices of data, theories and methods create limitations regarding what we can learn about sustainable agriculture. And it's important to say here, something that I didn't say, is that we looked at the highest impact articles in these respective fields. So what I say now about agroecology research and sustainable intensification research, it doesn't apply to all research. There are lots of more nuanced and maybe better reasoned research in both of these fields. But we talk about the articles that had the highest impact, which we would expect are the research that is most influential, and the sort of how the debate is framed amongst those with most impact in research at the moment. So another thing that both sustainable intensification and agroecology have in common, and which relates to something that Ola said, I can't remember exactly what you said now, but you said, I talk about farming broadly, I don't only talk about crop production. For me, that implies that for some people, farming is crop production. And in these two research fields, both in agroecology and sustainable intensification, in all the high impact papers, animals were almost completely absent. And for me, this is particularly surprising for agroecology, because agroecology is about the whole farming system, and animals are a clear part of that farming system. It's a little bit easier to understand in sustainable intensification, which is much more reductionist and focus very much on crop farming. But it doesn't justify that either of these fields talk about farming and when they actually talk about crop production. And also food systems, which is what we're supposed to talk about here today. Food systems are not part of this literature, or to a very limited extent. All the focus is on the farm level. So one conclusion that we have in the paper, and I will just read this, is that both research strands overlook the role of the wider governance of farming systems, which makes it impossible to draw conclusions beyond the likely impact, about the likely impact of the farm level interventions that they propose. And this is important to acknowledge, I think, because you cannot really draw conclusions about to what extent farming is sustainable or not, or how farming needs to change if you don't look at the wider situation in which farming is placed within being governed by policies and markets and so on. So in what way does science need to change then, do we think? And are there any hopes? I would say, so one thing that we write in the paper and that we found is that newer agroecology research definitely engages with questions of power in the food system. At the moment, that research was not up on the high impact level, but it might be in the future. And there is also a growing body of publications more generally in science that emphasize the importance of humility in research, which is also promising. So, in conclusion, I think it's important to understand that there will never be one answer from science about what a sustainable or a resilient food system is. But I think, and we also conclude in this text, that science can become more relevant for society. And this can be done, for example, by scientists, and maybe specifically scientists in important positions, or scientists that publish very high impact papers and are highly cited, that they become more humble about what kind of conclusions they can draw. So if scientists become better in not overemphasizing the relevance of their research, and better at communicating across disciplines, and being clearer in their communication about their limitations, then I think science can be a very important discussion partner in the societal discussion about sustainability in agriculture. And we, the artist Erika Magnusson drew this beautiful picture for us, which sort of symbolizes this hope for change. This sprouting seed is supposed to represent some form of unity in the dialogue, maybe. And we can see that a little bit in the lower impact papers, that there is more nuance than in this high impact paper, actually. And so it sort of represents, to the left this time, sustainable intensification, and to the right, agroecology, and in the front, something that maybe indicates that some of these people and research fields are starting to talk with each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Clara. And you already touched upon hope, which is what most of us wanted here today. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Again, in the interest of time, please ask your questions to Clara during the break. I'm sure you have many and that she's eager to respond to them. Now we will move on to, from this quite research scientific side, to more implementation, and hear from two people from two organizations on what really works for resilient food systems for farmers and vulnerable communities. And we have one speaker online and one speaker here with us in the room. So first, I would like to welcome Helena Forslund, Africa Regional Desk Officer at the Swedish Red Cross, who is with us online today. So please, Helena, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning to everyone, and I'm really sorry I couldn't join you, but I'm recovering from the flu, so you probably wouldn't have wanted to sit next to me this morning. I think I have somebody helping me out to present the slides, yes. So I don't need to do that clicking myself. You can go to the next slide. And what I will do in this brief presentation, I thought I had 10 minutes. I know I have 5, so I'll be fast. I will firstly provide an overview of the framework to community resilience that we use at the Red Cross. And secondly, I will showcase this by an example from one of our ongoing projects in Mozambique in an attempt to respond to the question, what works for vulnerable communities? Next slide, please. And what you see there on the screen is the definition that we use, and it's set out by the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. So we use this definition globally. I think you can read it to yourself, but what it focuses on, as you will see, is the human or social ability to bounce back from shocks. So next slide from that, please. And in this, and I'll ask you to put even one more slide. So basically, the foundation of the work we do rests upon an operational framework, which we call the Roadmap to Community Resilience. And this serves as our operational guide in combination with the Enhanced Vulnerability and Capacity Assessment tool. And this tool is a participatory tool and also an empowering process for communities that serve to assess and analyze the risks to the community and to help identify actions that the community members can take to reduce the risks that they are exposed to. And the stages that this roadmap will take us through are essentially 4. It starts with engaging and connecting the community, starts by building the understanding of risk and resilience. And thirdly, it is about taking action. And lastly, how you learn and internalize the knowledge. Next, we undertake these assessments in every community where we work, and a full such assessment, depending on the size of the community, would roughly take 3 to 5 days. Next slide, please. And we look at community resilience in the representation of 11 dimensions. You see these dimensions listed. And what we do is that in the picture, you see an image which represents how we use these dimensions and form what we call the resilience star. And that is a representation of these different 11 dimensions, of which, yes, food systems would be recognized through, in part, food and nutrition, as well as natural resource management. So it's a wide array of different dimensions that come into play. And the other type of tools we use in the enhanced vulnerability and capacity assessment you would be familiar with. They would be things like community mapping, seasonal calendars, transect walks, problem trees, and solution trees. But the resilience star is one that forms a corner piece to this. Next slide, please. And what we as Red Cross or Red Crescent societies do to a community is that we engage with them, or we provide 3 types of services or roles. And the combination of these approaches is intended to promote transformational change in the community. And they are essentially, one is to accompany the community, which means to join them in action and influence. And join does never mean accompany means join, it never means to lead. So it's important that the community has the ownership of the process. And to enable implies providing the means to take action and to learn. And here it's important that it's the community that is the agent of change. And the last one is represented by the role to support the community to connect outside of itself, which serves to break the isolation. Next slide, please. And lastly, we are now set in the example that I wanted to talk around, which is one of our ongoing projects in Mozambique that we implement together with the Mozambique Red Cross, where the Mozambique Red Cross is the lead actor, obviously. It's a 4-year project, and I think that is the sort of minimum time frame to be able to accomplish something sustainable. As you can see, there are 3 main thematic components that you'd recognize. One is on disaster risk management, or is that disaster risk reduction. One you would all be happy to see is on livelihood. and there is the third component on health and wash. I could spend some time to talk a little bit about what we engage in the livelihood component, but I think for the sake of time, I'll try to wrap up, but I want to sort of convey the message of what works. And what works, that is when we are able to work in a comprehensive and integrated program like this, that is truly multi-sectoral. And it is when we have that time span to work consistently with the community over time, and with that equip them through the means of our engagement to bring about empowerment. And the result we can see in that will inevitably be a strengthening of community resilience. And one of the ways in which we also can measure this is that the tool, the Resilience Start tool that we use at the starting point to assess the dimensions of the resilience inherent in the community, is also utilized at the end. And then you can ensure that you can reflect and measure changes that has occurred over time. And I think I lost track of time, so maybe I pulled over, but I did my best to accomplish this on time. Thank you.
Helena, thank you so much for that presentation, for highlighting the need for comprehensive approaches and multi-sectorial approaches as well, which ties well into the roundtable questions that we will discuss later today. I'm thinking, since we have you online now and you won't be here for the rest of the day, if anyone has a short clarifying question for Helena, we can take it straight away. Not at this point, but I'm sure, Helena, if anyone do have a question for you later, maybe they can contact you as well, and we could, if it's okay with you, share your contact details. I see a thumbs up, that's perfect. Thank you for joining us, Helena, despite the flu. I would now like to introduce our next speaker on the same topic, Akram Abdulrahman, who is environmental advisor and desk officer at Islamic Relief Sweden, and he's with us here today. Welcome up on stage.
Thank you so much. Okay. Can everyone hear me? Perfect. Just before, just to make sure that we're not falling asleep, if I can please just ask everyone to slightly just stretch your arms. Perfect. I'm born and raised in Sweden, but originally my parents are from Ethiopia and Eritrea. And in Ethiopia we say, no one will ever listen to you unless you wear a microphone. So it's just to start with that. So today, in regards to answering the question and pondering upon the topics of resilience and sustainable food systems, I will speak on behalf of a humanitarian point of view. Just to give a little quick reference, Islamic Relief Sweden, we are one of Sida's 10 strategic partners when it comes to humanitarian funding, along with Swedish Red Cross. And we operate in among the hard-to-reach areas on the planet, specifically when it comes to climate-vulnerable contexts, whether it's Middle East, Horn of Africa, the Sahel region, Southeast Asia. And I myself, I have monitored and managed projects in Mali, Somalia, Ethiopia, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Indonesia, and so forth. And today, I will on behalf of Islamic Relief, we will uplift some of our outputs and lessons learned from two projects, one in South Sudan and one in Indonesia, one being humanitarian and one is a development cooperation, with a specific focus on reducing vulnerabilities and enhance livelihood support to climate and conflict-affected communities in these two regions. So here we go. Yes, so for our first project, we have a multi-year humanitarian funding project from Sida in South Sudan, with the focus on enhancing food security and access to nutritional food through resilient agriculture. And it's a I also want to echo Helena's point in regards to answering the question right away, that the best way to ensure that we accommodate the needs for vulnerable communities to become resilient and accommodating sustainable and strong food systems is to have an integrated approach and a multi-sectorial a strategic objective. So for us in this project, it's a multi-year project, 3 years, and we're focusing on supporting vulnerable communities with flood-resistant farming practices, also known as climate-resilient agriculture. I want to avoid the term climate-smart agriculture for some of the controversies that is associated with that term. But when it comes to flood-resistant farming practices, South Sudan is hugely vulnerable both to floods, but also for drought and conflict, which is exacerbating the climate conditions. So in South Sudan, we are focusing on diversification of crop systems in order to ensure that crops are being mixed with different waters to minimize losses. And then also, I will touch upon in the next slide, you cannot have a healthy food system in rural communities without healthy livestock essentially. So in this project, we're also focusing on vaccinating animals. So this project, over a time span of 3 years, reached roughly 70,000 target individuals in Warrap and Wau in North and South Sudan. Perfect. So in regards, as I mentioned, we are focusing on both flood-resilient agriculture, but also drought-resistant. So ensuring that crop seeds are local and diversified and that they are pesticide-free so that they can also be resilient both through droughts, but also flooding, as South Sudan and neighboring countries are unfortunately vulnerable to both irregular climate patterns. And the aspect of ensuring that resilience is being enhanced is to ensure that the cultivation can be successful enough throughout weather cycles. And as you know, when in the Horn of Africa and in this region, when the rainy seasons are prolonged or when they are delayed, then usually it comes with an exacerbated rainy seasons, which causes huge floods and flash floods. And unfortunately, in these contextual settings, the social infrastructure and the physical infrastructure isn't always accommodative, causing a lot of flash floods on the ground. And then in regards to sustainable food systems, as I mentioned, from a humanitarian point of view, you cannot have a healthy and resilient food systems if you don't incorporate the health of livestock. And for agro-pastoralist communities, they are essential. They are the building blocks of their livelihoods. So in this case, in our project, we have ensured that roughly 50,000 livestock animals, cattle, sheep, and goats, have been vaccinated or are being vaccinated as the project is ongoing. And Helena also mentioned the perspective of disaster risk reduction. When you have healthy livestock, you also minimize the risk of resource-based conflicts. So this also sort of incorporates, from a humanitarian angle, the ability to ensure that food systems can be resilient and sustainable. And then I will also, by the way, this is a project which was managed by 2 of our colleagues called Isak and Mohammed Amin, who are not here today. But now I will provide some lessons learned from a project that I managed and also from our previous colleague, Jonna, who is now at SEI. She had this project before me. And this is a development contextual climate adaptive intervention, which focuses more on the long term as climate adaptive needs are becoming more and more needed. So in this case, there's 2 focuses primarily. So one is innovative rain-fed or rain harvesting techniques and specific yields that farmers in Lombok, Indonesia, in our project that they focused on is everything from eggplant, tobacco, tomatoes, and chili peppers and so forth. And again, to avoid the risks of amplified pest infestations and ensuring that you can have crops that are resilient throughout the year. In Indonesia, approximately you have 6 months, 5 to 6 months of rainy season and an equivalent of dry season. But usually when one of the seasons prolongs, it comes with an amplified and exacerbated weather cycle. So if the rainy season is delayed, it usually comes with strong and more amplified weather patterns afterwards. And then the second focus that we focused on, particularly from an island context, if you want to have a successful climate adaptive measures for food systems that ought to be resilient, we look at for marine farmers, marine subsistence farmers. So in our case, we looked at how can we ensure that the livelihood for marine farmers are accommodated in the long term. So with the help of our country office in Islamic Indonesia and local implementing partners, we focused on ensuring that mangrove forests were restored. And as most of you probably know, that mangroves also serve as a buffer for flooding as well. So it has a double effect, not just improving the accessibility of nutrition for lobsters and seafood, or shellfish, but also serves as climate adaptive protection for in resistance to flood and sea level rise. And last but not least, I visited the climate adaptive technique called geomembrane prism houses, which helps cultivate salt extraction when the drier season are more drier. So just to tie everything up, when you have integrated approach and a multi-sectorial application to both a humanitarian project but also development project, you can incorporate more perspectives for resilience and ensuring that the vulnerable communities can have their needs and be capacitated to accommodate their food system needs, but also ensuring that they can be resilient towards further challenges associated with climate change and disasters and so forth. So those are my lessons learned, and I would like to thank SIANI for allowing us to speak today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank you for speaking with us today and for giving us that arm stretcher and giving us some photos and examples of what you see actually work in your project. So thank you so much for ending the morning sessions with that. And you will also stay during the break, so please reach out to Akram if you have any questions about his presentations. Because now we are going on a short break.
So my name is Jonna Wiklund, and I work as a project coordinator at SIANI and SEI. And I will now lead you through this session where we will turn our focus to the SIANI expert groups. And just to give you a short brief background, SIANI expert groups are, there's a description here. Basically, working groups established around SIANI's vision and mission that brings together experts in specific issues to both contribute to holistic understanding, consolidate knowledge, foster interactions, and also working with outreach and communication. And they are a really important part of SIANI's work. They contribute to our vision and mission, and they also extend our reach and our network. Since we are here in Sweden, they are really the extended arm of SIANI. We have 4 groups that started in 2024 and 6 new groups starting this year. And we really encourage you to follow the work of the groups on our website, where we regularly post updates about their activities and outputs. So that's a tip. You can also find all of the old groups there if you want to see what we have done before. 3 groups that started this year will join us to present who they are and what they will be doing. We will have 1 here in the room and 2 joining us online. But before that, we are going to look at a short video that presents all of the 6 new groups that started this year. So now you have at least an overview. Yeah. It's Ebba who put together the movie, so the credit is all on her. But now I will hand over to Milena, Arias, Schreiber, who will tell us more about one of these groups. And you are a researcher at the Institution of Global Studies at Gothenburg University. And we will now learn more about the Fisheries group. So please, and you press that one to change the slide.
Oh, I just have one slide, so I guess, yeah, this one. Yeah, thank you for inviting me to present our expert group. It's brand new, started last month, and it's called Small Scale Fisheries in Latin America. And yeah, our aim is mostly to support fishing communities in 5 countries in Latin America: Peru, Ecuador, Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico. And as you might know, this is not agriculture, but it's fisheries. So a bit bringing you to the sea. Fishing is, this type of fishing is very widely spread all over the world, especially in the global south. But we have some small-scale fisheries in Sweden too. But yeah, it's very poorly known, but it's very important for food security, which is a topic that hasn't been very discussed, I think, in political awareness. So just to give you some numbers, more or less 70 million people are employed somehow in this type of activities. It's very different from the large-scale fishing with trawlers that you mean. This is all done by very small boats with 2 or 3 people, mainly men, but a few women as well. And yeah, they own their little boat, they own their little gears, and they go fishing every day. And they also sell in the local market. There are some exports, but depending on when you are, the food should stay in the little village or close cities where they sell their fish. 60 million fishermen, 43 million women work mostly in selling or preparing or somehow in the value chain. 40% of all the catches, 40% that we eat as fish comes from this type of fishery. And it's very important, of course, for local, it's not just good quality, it's very nutritious food for people in rural areas, and especially also for nutrition of children in younger ages. But if you go to these places, you will immediately notice that there is lots of poverty around these fishing communities. They lack public services. As you see, some even do not have places to bring their boats, so they land on the beach. They don't have social security. Informal and very vulnerable communities. They don't have also rights for the uses of the sea, property rights for the resources. So their centrality, as I said, for food security is also unknown or not acknowledged at political levels either. So, and they need better policies. If there are policies, they need better ones for them. So we have 5, we call them hubs in these countries, which are networks of researchers, but NGOs and fishermen as well. Anyone who wants to support the development of this type of fisheries, then they can join these hubs. We know the people who are, we call the core members, because we have met them in previous meetings. So we know more or less who we are working with. We are launching open calls to the ones who want to join these national networks in these 5 countries. And we will start discussions and produce, the idea is to produce 5 ebooks together. So where every country decides actually what is important to visualize about the small-scale fisheries sector. And yeah, we will have some workshops as well to discuss these needs and how to support the fishery in these communities and disseminate the ebooks. The ebooks are not research publications, are for popular, easy reading, and maybe to politicians as well. Try to reach them with these books to inform, but also start discussions, as I said. And very important for us, we will meet next year in the only world meeting for this type of fisheries, which is called the World Small-Scale Fisheries Congress. It's not either a scientific conference, it's a meeting for this community that works to support small-scale fisheries, and we will present our results and see how we go on. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And you will still be here, so take the chance and ask questions during lunch later. But I will now see and hope that Monica Nderitu is online. Yes, you are. Hi, Monica. It's really nice to see you. And I will not spend any more time talking, but I will give the word to you. You are the Regional Environment and Climate Change Advisor at the Agroforestry, and you are coordinating the East African Dryland Agroforestry Expert Group. Please.
Very fast, within five minutes. Please bring on the slide. The East African Drylands Agroforestry Expert Group, it's a group that has about 15 experts coming from multidisciplinary or transdisciplinary sections, bringing together people in different areas, researchers, academia, and other peer organizations. And we are working together to really raise the issues or to bring forth the issues that the drylands areas are experiencing, especially on climate change, biodiversity loss, food and nutritional insecurity, and above all, there this issue around in East Africa, that is in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, and especially in the arc between Kenya and Uganda, we normally have a conflict over resources, and therefore we have come together, the 15 of us, to really raise the voices of the vulnerable communities in these areas and bring issues to the policymakers and promote dialogues to transform food systems and enhance biodiversity conservation in these areas. Key among the issues that we wish to bring forth is having dialogue with the policymakers in various platforms. We will be utilizing the VI Agroforestry platforms, for example, the symposium, the National Symposium on Agroforestry in Tanzania, the Open Learning Week in Kenya, and we'll be also be participating in various forums, for example, in the strategy for the National Agroforestry Strategy in Kenya. We'll also ensure that we are really participating in those areas. So far, we have planned up some activities, and we have one that is upcoming on Friday. We have a webinar where the experts will come together and the community to really discuss on matters that can support the drylands agroforestry adoption in these areas. So on Friday, you are welcome. We could share the link for the webinar. but we've also lined up to do or to write a policy brief focusing on how to enhance climate resilience and food security in the drylands, and particularly looking at how we can scale up agroforestry for sustainable livelihoods in these areas, specifically in Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. So in brief, that is what we are doing, and we hope to really continue networking around. I think we have Isale in the audience who will be representing via agroforestry, and the audience there can also interact, but you're also open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Monica. Yeah, just like Monica said, her contact details is at the SIANI website, and Isale is here today, so you can also connect with her if you have more questions. And we will now move to the last of the presenters, and that's Tatiana Stevneva. You are the, I see that you have the wrong title there, but you are a board member at Centralasien-grupperna, and you will present the group Reviving the Roots. So please, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. It's nice that I can join you online, and I hope that you can hear me well. But in my short presentation, I will talk about our expert group, Reviving the Roots, and why we think the project is important to implement. So the goal of our group is to increase interest in an ecosystem-based approach to agriculture in Kyrgyzstan, and in particular to soil management, in order to improve soil health. And to give a bit of a background, land degradation and food insecurity are major problems in Kyrgyzstan, affecting smallholder farmers who make up the majority of the country's agricultural sector. And poverty and the lack of support from the state forces the farmers to prioritize short-term gains over sustainable long-term practices. And this is even further complicated by the fact that the state subsidizes mineral fertilizers, which are sold to farmers at a more affordable price and which further damages the soil. Historically, however, before Kyrgyzstan became a part of the Soviet Union, the traditional perception of soil used to be more ecocentric and holistic, where humans were considered as part of the ecosystem rather than its central focus. But the Soviet rule came with new unsustainable farming practices, which were then followed by also decades of unregulated land use after the independence. And this shifted the approach. And as a result, profit-driven mindset, which puts nature mainly as a resource to serve human needs, became the norm. And so to address this issue in our project, we plan to engage with farmers to revive this local and historical perception of soil and raise awareness about soil health among smallholders in order to empower them to adopt sustainable practices. And we approach this through culture and art, leveraging local ecological knowledge. And we will also integrate permaculture principles. As for specific activities, so first we will conduct an anthropological research on traditional perceptions and practices related to soil. And this is something that we are working on at the moment. But then based on the findings from the study, we will have an awareness raising campaign involving traditional art and folk poetry, and also a big online campaign. Apart from that, we will also organize consultation sessions with soil experts, civil society, and duty bearers. And this is to identify gaps in the legislation and also to develop policy recommendations. we will also organize an exhibition on soil and food sustainability and engage arts and anthropology students in the creation of this exhibition with the goal of fostering dialogue and awareness. And as for the composition of the group, so the idea behind this project, it builds on years of collaboration between two organizations, L2 and Central Asia Solidarity Groups. L2 is a civil society organization that is based in Kyrgyzstan and working with local communities to address environmental and food security. And Central Asian Group, PENA, or Central Asia Solidarity Groups, is a Swedish development cooperation organization working with civil society in Central Asia. And we also have PhD researcher in social anthropology from the University of Gothenburg as a part of the group. But yeah, the details for us, I believe, are on the website of SIANI, so you're free to contact us if you have any questions. And I'm also happy to answer them here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And as we are a bit delayed, I will actually ask you to save your questions and reach out to the representatives or me if you want more information or contact details if they're not here in the room. So thank you so much, Tatiana and Monica, for joining us, and please feel free to stay on if you want to follow the rest of the program. But we will now, so that was the new expert groups. But we also thought that it would be nice to check in a little bit with the groups that started last year, which means that I will now welcome up representatives from those groups. So please join me up here, Linus Dagerskog, who is a research fellow at Stockholm Environment Institute, and Paul Egan, a researcher at the Department of Plant Protection Biology at the SLU. And I believe that we also I think you can stand here. And maybe a little bit closer. And online we have Caroline Delgado, who is a senior researcher, and I have to open up to make sure I don't. Also the director of the Food, Peace and Security Program at CIPRI. And we have Ivar, who is a senior research fellow at Stockholm Environment Institute. So hi to all of you, and thank you for joining us today. And thank you for your patience. You've been ready for some time now. So I will, since not all of you were present at the meeting last year when we presented these groups, I will start with asking you to describe your groups or the groups that you are engaged with pretty briefly. And we can start with the gentleman in the room. So please, Linus, you can go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So I'm one of 8 experts in the expert group on a One Health approach to WASH in Burkina Faso. The other 7 are in Burkina Faso and not here today. So I'm Linus, I work at Stockholm Environment Institute, and the expert group, it takes a One Health approach to WASH, and One Health is one of these concepts that is gaining popularity, and it is about recognizing the interdependence of human health, animal health, and environmental ecosystem health, and the interlinkages that we all know about, but it's often difficult to apply them in practice. And we have been looking into what a One Health approach could mean for WASH interventions. And basically, if we talk about the link to animal health, it's about WASH interventions also integrating the zoonotic risks that are present in many households, the majority of households in poorer countries where you basically live with livestock, but they're rarely taken into account in WASH interventions. So the zoonotic risks on the animal health side, and then when we have environmental risks, it's about how we manage the waste from humans and animals in a productive way so we can support soil fertility, soil health, and agriculture instead of polluting water bodies. So we have had these two perspectives, looking at zoonosis and on managing waste in a productive way. So half of the expert group has been focusing on the zoonotic part, and the other half on on the reuse and recycling, and how that has been integrated into some WASH interventions, and draw lessons from them and look into policies, etc., etc. I'll rest there.
Thank you. Perfect. Paul, please.
Yeah,
continue.
sure. So I'm here today to represent the Pollination in Asia expert group. We're led by Lotte Fabricius Christensen. She can't be here, so she sent me in her place. But I was quickly trying to enumerate how many we are. I'm not quite sure. It's quite a lot. I think maybe about 16, 17 people. But we're active in 4 countries: Sri Lanka, Nepal, India, and Laos. And within those locations, we have 6 what we call living labs. Perhaps people are familiar with that concept. So it just brings together local beekeepers and farmers that are using pollination for their crops, but also government authorities we consider as part of the living lab, and also natural resource management in terms of the environment. So we're kind of looking at both biodiversity preservation goals, which are good for pollinators and beekeepers, but then also food security as well, from the perspective that pollinators are providing most of things like vitamins A and C and folate from a nutritional perspective. So yeah, that's mainly who we are. I don't think we say what we have done yet. That's coming.
We can come back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Should we try with giving the word to Ivar? And then...
Do you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. Caroline, we will come back to you.
I can start then. Hi, everybody, and I'm Ivar Regin, based at Stockholm Environment Institute in Stockholm, and I'm part of the SIANI Agrobiological Expert Group, which is roughly 10 persons, and the people doing all the work are based, and the project is based in Ethiopia, Kenya, and Tanzania. And what are agrobiologicals? That is a diverse group of products derived from microorganisms, plant extracts, insects, and various organic matters that can increase plant growth and control plant diseases and pests and so on, and improve soil health. So that's the expert group in short.
Yeah, and we can talk more about what you have been doing. Caroline, let's try again.
Okay, do you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, excellent. So hi, I am Caroline Delgado, and I represent the Latin American Working Group on Climate and Environmental Security and Justice. Our group started back in 2022, so just before actually we got the support from SIANI. And what we're doing is we're basically putting experts on different aspects related to climate-related security risk together. So that includes environmental justice, food security, land rights, etc., to create a common understanding across different societal groups that is regional. So our composition, we're about 15 members from 10 different countries in Latin America. It's co-convened by CIPRI, so it's a couple of us researchers based here in Sweden. And also the Fredrik Ebert Stiftung is also a core convener. And the main, well, I'll get into it more later, I guess, but the main activities that the group has been doing before we actually sort of transitioned over to the expert group as supported by SIANI is to really develop core messages that are regional and comes from the different stakeholders around what are the key issues when it comes to climate-related security. And that resulted in 4 areas. It was democratic governance, extractivism and land use change, environmental and climate justice, and protection of nature and territories. And what they did with these messages or themes is that they created key messages that were regional with recommendations and targeted audiences. And I'm saying this because when we then got the support from SIANI, this allowed us to use those messages and actually reach some of the audiences that we had identified with these messages. And with SIANI's support, that is what we've been doing in this last year.
Thank you so much, everyone. And Yeah, I will then. You all started your projects around this time last year, so you've been working for about a year on it. And I would be curious to know what you see as at least maybe one of the main achievements of your groups so far. Caroline, maybe you can continue. We can start with someone online.
Yeah, thanks. I think the main achievement has really been that we have been able to reach the audiences that we wanted, and a quite wide range of audiences. We met with German and Swedish policy makers at government level in the spring. That was very successful, and they really highlighted how much they liked the regional approach to these issues, which of course don't stop by borders, but a lot of the actual group working on topics tend to be national or subnational. So that was something that was really valued and really kind of confirmed some of the key strengths that we felt that the group had. We were also able to participate in the biodiversity COP in November in Colombia. And that was also a great opportunity for the group to really reach a big audience in the region as well, where many of the group members are from, and also some of the key outcomes of the COP at the ministerial level or the country level actually really helped some of the issues that the group had been pushing for. So that was also a very, very significant achievement for the group.
Thank you. And we can move over to someone in the room. Paul, do you want to share some achievements that you would like to highlight?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the things we've achieved, and it's been a bit surprising, is like co-creation of knowledge. We've been trying to survey lots of beekeepers and farmers about adaptation. How are they responding to climatic shocks, droughts, and heat waves and floods and that kind of thing, and collect this knowledge to try and synthesize it. So we've done a tour in Laos where we brought all the living labs together and visited some beekeepers, and we were learning practices that were surprising everybody, including some of the government agencies from Sri Lanka, for instance. Things like what the beekeepers are doing, and these are people that don't have formal training. They've sort of inherited the practice through traditional knowledge. So we're able to kind of like capture that and spread it upwards and to other countries in the region, what is kind of, you might say, community knowledge of how to keep bees and protect them from increasing climatic shocks. That's one of the big things for us. And I'll talk maybe more in the other questions too about where we're going to take that knowledge, because we are going to connect it to the humanitarian practitioner organizations and things like that.
Yeah, thank you. Eva, do you want to go ahead?
The main objective of the group is really to catalyze the production and use of bio-based biologicals in East Africa. So what the group has done and has been successful, I think, is to map and link the various key actors in these three countries, be it regulatory people, regulating agrobiologicals, the ones producing them, and to some extent also the users, which mainly are in the horticulture sector so far, to see what are in dialogues, country dialogues, what are the challenges, opportunities, and barriers and things that needs to happen in order to use and promote and forward the use of using agrobiologicals in the region. I think I stop there.
Yeah, thank you. And Linus, please.
Yeah, I think the expert group's achievement one has been to document previous experiences, to actually get experiences down on paper, which is often lacking. Both there has been some innovative wash interventions in Burkina with where they've taken zoonotic risks into account, and many pilot projects on resource recovery and recycling of wastes, but they have been implemented separately and not very well documented. So that's something we have contributed to. And then shared these lessons and the results in a national workshop where we brought together veterinaries, health people, ag people, environmental people from different levels in society, and really showing that we can position more integrated wash can be like a super tool, both for the zoonotic interventions, but also from ag intervention point of view. So more holistic wash can really be beneficial. And maybe we can tap into ag funds by showing that we're relevant to ag and also to One Health funds by showing that, yeah, more integrated wash can also prevent zoonosis. So we're also trying to reach out in the sanitation sectors to become more relevant.
Yeah.
And I think that was, that created interest on national level in Burkina.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, for someone who has followed all of your work during a year now, it feels like you have all sort of really noticed and sometimes maybe been even a bit surprised about the interest that your topic, the interest for your topics among stakeholders that you have tried to include in various ways in your activities, which is, I think, really encouraging. And the SIANI, the SIANI expert groups are projects, but they are quite limited projects. So we also hope that they can be sort of a stepping stone or a way towards doing more around these things. So before we wrap up, I would just like to hear you reflect a little bit around what you see as possible sort of next steps or future developments within these topics or for your groups. I'm not sure if you're prepared for that, but I hope you'll be able to say something. We can start in the room again. Linus, you can continue.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of pathways. I know that the partners in Burkina are very keen to like take that best approach that on the field from zoonosis prevention in wash projects together with the recycling and resource recovery aspect into one holistic approach and try that in the field. But that requires more funding than the SIANI expert group. But otherwise, I think that also trainings, capacity building around these topics could be useful to get more partners up to speed and know about the methods that have been used, etc. That could be another pathway.
Paul, please continue.
Yeah. So both one of the challenges and one of the ways forward for us will be bringing these messages to the humanitarian sector. And as we know, as has been referenced at the start of today, there's been quite some shock to that in recent times. In particular, we have a dialogue with one agency called SEEDS. It's standards for supporting crop livelihoods in emergencies. And pollination and beekeeping has been a gap that they have said that they would like us to contribute to, but they've had their funding cut. So we will find a way forward to take the message to other practitioner agencies who can use this practically. The other thing, secondly, is what we call a pollinator deficit monitoring network that we've established amongst the 6 areas. It's sort of a pilot, but we wish to take it forward. It's the first time anything like this has been attempted at that scale. There's the old adage, you can't manage what you don't monitor, and this is the first attempt to monitor across key crops. Are there yield gaps due to pollinators? Do we need to act on this? How big are they, and what implications does that have for nutrition that could be entering the system but isn't? So we hope to put this network, if we can maintain it, on a more sustainable trajectory. But it's certainly thanks to SIANI for helping us to initiate it.
For that. Caroline, have you thought anything about possible next steps?
Yes, we have indeed. I mean, we see this issue is really becoming more and more prominent in the region. One of the topics that the group identified as being particularly critical, and I mentioned that in the beginning, was extractivism and land use change. So that is a topic that we want to continue to work on with the group, because they're affected by it in different ways, but also to tie that with a similar kind of network that we want to set up that covers more of the Arctic region. because obviously in the Latin American region, there's a long history of extractivism for different reasons, and now it's more and more in support of the green transition, which the group felt very strongly, this is not a green transition for us. And we want to see what lessons learned can you draw from the Latin American region from these experts that we've been liaising with, which I didn't mention in the beginning. It sort of spans the spectrum from farmers, indigenous people, activists on the ground, all the way through up to policy, people engaged in policy level work. We have even former lawyers, journalists. So it really is the whole spectrum, academics, etc. in the group. And we want to try and harvest a bit more of their concrete lessons learned and tie that with a similar group looking at the different regions. So that is what we're planning as the next steps.
Thank you. And Ivar, last but not least.
Right. Well, I think agrobiologicals in general is moving quite rapidly, or is taking on quite, is being used quite rapidly, or taken up quite rapidly in Europe and the United States, and so on. But in Africa, there's a lot of traditional use of agrobiologicals, but not so well documented, and the efficacy and standards and so on using agrobiologicals is quite is lacking basically. So the aim, to create that sort of dialogue platform of how to forward and use agrobiologicals more effectively and produce them locally is important. I think there we have made and are making an input, a contribution, and the idea is now to link all these country working groups that has been working with this expert group with a larger in a regional city, a larger regional platform, and link them with two really exciting ongoing projects, which one is called AgBio4 SSA, which is a more sort of science-driven project on living labs on agrobiologicals, and one European African network on the use of agrobiologicals. So merging, the knowledge and key messages and the networks from this expert group, sort of year of working with the larger ones, I think will make a great contribution.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights and your lessons learned, and it will be really exciting to follow the last parts of your projects, but also, of course, the continuation. You're all part of the SIANI network now, so you're going to have to keep in touch. We have to move on. So again, I encourage you to ask your questions during breaks or connect with these people afterwards. You can ask me or find the contact details online. But I will now hand over to you again, Alice. And you can maybe, should we do an arm stretcher again? Thank you. And a big applause.
Welcome back from lunch. I hope you got to network with some even more people during lunch, and that you're full and eager to get back to discussions and more presentations this afternoon. But before we move on to other people on stage, we'll do a short reporting back from the roundtable discussions that you had before lunch. So I would like to ask one person from each table to join me here on stage. We have a microphone as well. And the task that you had was to come up or vote using these little colored dots that I see that you've been using, to vote for the most important ideas around your table and the most innovative ideas. And I will not ask all of you to present all of them, but just a selected few. So one person from each table. Are you starting, Linus? No, oh, okay. That's actually a great idea. Can one person from each table please join me on stage? So. We're missing two people. He's on his way, okay? And so we're missing one. Which table has... You coming? I've learned from the morning we need to be on time, so no stress. Perfect. So please just introduce your name and your organization and which table you sat at. And then first I would like to hear from your group and your most important ideas. That's a microphone for you.
Thank you. My name is Malin Stråle. I come from the Swedish Society for Nature Conservation, Naturskyddsföreningen. And one of our most important ideas was to ensure or involve civil society more in this new approach of Team Sweden that is now being formed and enhanced by Sida and the national development. So that was our take, that we have to be more involved as civil society in this.
Thank you. Adriana, can you share the most innovative ideas that you had?
So I'm representing group number 3. We actually had one innovative idea, which was when we conduct our activities, whatever they are, think about legacy, how to build long-term sustainability of the projects, of the networks, and that can be done through increasing communication among the groups that we're working with, but also leveling up to policymakers and financiers. So that kind of
long-term sustainability. Thank you. And let's do most important ideas from you, Linus.
Okay, so that they were very spread out, so it was difficult to find one, but one that got a little bit more than the others was that we need now, in these times of crisis and emergency, like within our networks, to support the members who suddenly face challenges in implementing projects or funding, and see how we can provide support in terms of just listening, discussing, or help them in any way. And also that also goes for maybe SIANI expert groups, that we have to be adaptive and flexible with the projects and the networks to changing circumstances.
Yeah.
So we know that it's troubling times for many.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello. What's your name and organization?
Sanna from SLU Global.
Yeah, and your most innovative ideas that you discussed.
Most innovative one was being a good role model. So for an example that was brought up was when you guys serve food, or if anyone serves food, just explain where the food is from and stuff like that. It's maybe obvious, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not obvious, and I don't think people think about that when they host events and stuff like that. Yeah.
Even integrating the sustainability.
Exactly, you have to practice it as well.
Everywhere. Nice. Sveva.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm Sveva. I work at SIANI and the Stockholm Environment Institute.
Most important. Let's
Most
do
important ideas. Yes. So for us, it came out as using networks to really facilitate what was called uncomfortable conversations, which is really important, we said, to bridge silos. So using networks to really convene actors that are at the opposite ends of maybe the of different agricultural approaches to have these tough conversations.
Interesting. And the last group, your name and organization, and present your most innovative ideas that you had from your discussions.
Okay. Yeah, hello everybody. Leon is my name. I'm from the Alnabs Agroecology Farm. We talked a lot about linking academia and practitioners directly. That was the most important, but the most innovative was to have more lighthouse model farms close by to academia, to sort of provide a practical, accessible space for public and for researchers to be active. And that went hand in hand with also acknowledging the benefits that smallholders provide that don't really have a monetary value, but sort of provide benefits and services for society, that they need to be sort of part of the conversation also.
Interesting. And Linus, you said, for example, that you had a lot of varying ideas. Was it difficult in the groups, you think, to have this voting on the most important and innovative ideas? Did you, this is for all groups, but did you disagree? Was there a lot of
This was just before lunch. It was.
Yeah.
There was no time to discuss the process, and I think they did very well. They could vote, and they took their time. But it was just that all the ideas were important, kind of. So it was spread out. Those dots were very spread out.
That's it.
So should I note down all of them then for you? Because you will read this like summary sheet.
Yes, only the top 3.
But if they're all the same,
then you write down all of them. Because that's challenge. We realized when planning this, like, we will have so many different ideas, and there's so many different people represented in this room as well. How do we make sense of all of this, and how do we actually take action from these ideas after this meeting? I think that's always a challenge and something we are very keen to do. And having too many might be overwhelming. But please write as many as you like, and we can sort later. Any other reflections from the round table or from the room? Anyone would like to share the process or anything that surprised you? Or yeah, Leon, you can go first, and then Cecilia.
Okay. It wasn't added as most innovative here now, but one thing that came up was sort of making post-growth or degrowth scenarios more accessible, also here in the Global North, and pricing the unsustainable accordingly. Because sort of the question was, how do we support smallholders to be resilient, and then taking away competition and supporting them along the way with compensating them for the benefits that they provide, came up also.
Interesting. Cecilia, would you like to add something?
Thank you. Just very briefly, I thought it was really cool at our table because people were sitting here producing the little blue stickers. And then suddenly we had this discussion that people took one sticker and added it to the other sticker, and then it came together in another idea. So it quite quickly coalesced into sort of a joint proposal. And it was really wonderful to see the dynamic here. I don't know if you guys want to say something about that. I thought it was amazing.
Yeah. So you like the process. That's nice to hear. And that's usually what happens when you cluster the ideas into themes. You realize that we actually think alike, or when you can also disagree within one topic. Anyone else with a reflection from the round tables? Madeleine? Wait, the microphone.
No, my reflection is that maybe someone of you also wonder what's going to happen with this now. We come here every year and we give you lots of very good ideas and suggestions. And I think it was 2 years back that we actually revisited what do we do with your ideas throughout the year. And maybe this time we are a little bit late for several reasons. This has been an unusual year, but you will, and we don't report back every year, but I think next year we can collect and see what kind of ideas we have massaged and put into, because we take them and we read them and we work internally, and then we kind of use part of it in our communication, of course, which is fluent and always ongoing. But then also when we design our events and so forth. And this year's roundtable will also feed into next year's work plan. It's just to give you some ideas that you are actually super important and we really value all these ideas coming up. Maybe you had that in your mind, Alice. Maybe I took the word from you.
No. That's a perfect addition to.
I just wanted to say that because this is maybe the most important hour for us when we work as a network. And I think every time when we get evaluated, they say if the network is relevant, and we score very high, and we have that question since 2011. We are at the same level, and I think you are contributing to that because you make us relevant and you makes our agendas very relevant. I just want to say that as a little add-on. Yeah.
And hopefully that what you've discussed here as well can also be brought back to your organizations, and maybe you've had ideas for your own work as well. No more hands? No. Oh, sorry, Marcos. Sorry, you were too close to me.
Thank you. Just to bring up again this point, I believe that more and more we are requested to think about what will happen after the end of any action or project. That's why we raise the point of legacy. What really stays beyond the lifetime of the project or the action. And I believe that we are now at the point that we should consider this more explicitly. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. Thank you so much for presenting, sharing your ideas, and writing all your things down on the post-its as well. Round of applause for you. I'm amazed because we're 10 minutes ahead of time. I know. But we're moving ahead. That's perfect. Luxury, yes.
Yes. No, but I will use it all, so don't worry.
Don't worry. I would now like to welcome Madeleine up on stage, the director of SIANI.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you all. It has been a very exciting morning. Every time I come in, I have been doing this for a number of years, and every year I wonder who will be in the room. I have a clue, but it's always nice to see how it changed. Some people come back, and we are so grateful. We have people here who has been with this network since it started. They are here with us today again, and we have been ongoing since 2009. So applause for those people who have stuck with this network all the time. I think they deserves it. And it's SIANI was conceived at the same time as another network, which is Focali. And we call ourselves sister networks. We are a bit different, but we support each other and we collaborate. And this year, we decided to have these meetings together because it didn't make sense Focali would do next week and we would do this week. We said, okay, let's do it together. We have people traveling in and they might enjoy staying in Stockholm for one extra night and be with attending the two meetings. And then we said also, it would be nice to then reflect on how we have been working as two networks. And we started off, as I said, 2009, 2008, there was a forest initiative network and there was SIANI, which was a Swedish one. And then at 2013, there was not so much left by the forest initiative, but Focali was there. And we tried to sit down and find out how can we collaborate? How can we make the most of it? It was not so given that landscapes and forest was also so importantly underpinning agriculture. It was not that evident as we have it today. And one of the first things we did was actually to explore areas where we should collaborate. One of them was agroforestry, which was natural agriculture forestry. We don't know what it is actually, but it's still there. It's together. We don't know if it's agriculture in the forest or forest in the agriculture, but it's agroforestry. And we are been exploring it, and we have been very successful because it's a concept that has been quite accepted in government paper and research, and where it's growing, it's big. And then the other one was landscapes. And at that time, we organized a network meeting in Gothenburg, and no one had a clue what was this landscape. It was 2013, and here after that we started to explore. So we followed the landscape process, and then at 2021 there was a food system process. And then it was very, very evident in this process how important it is to solve the food system so that we can achieve the sustainable development goals and we can achieve the climate goals. But it's also super important to recognize how ecosystem services underpin and support our food systems and how it has to be integrated. So now we start in a dialogue, and it's all over, it's all coming closer, food system into the landscapes. And we thought this kind of conversation would be a good conversation to bridge our two network, because you have already seen how we connect into it all the time. And this session will be a little bit based on our work the recent year and also researcher. And to make this very visible and clear for us, we have of course invited a researcher from the Focali network to explain it to us. But happily, she's now also working in the agriculture department in Germany. And she will come up to talk about landscapes and connecting them to food systems or vice versa. And then we will have some examples that we will present with time. So I think, and I hope also that you can contribute to the conversation, but you will hear some interesting examples of, we have nature-based solutions, we have this integrated, but we need more. And I hope this will be the conversation in the long run. But with that, I would like to invite Laura Schmauk, from Research Fellow at the University of Göttingen and the Department of Economics and Agriculture, something like that.
Yeah, agriculture, economics, and rural development. I'm also practicing.
Perfect, perfect. But you are for Focali network.
Exactly. Yeah, so thanks a lot for having me, and I have a clicker, and for the opportunity to connect the SIANI and the Focali conversations and kind of at the same time kickstart what's hopefully our joint discussion, right, on how to connect landscapes and food systems. Yeah, I was already briefly introduced. My name is Laura Kmoch. I work as a research associate at the University of Göttingen. And I do research that's kind of on livelihoods, agroforestry landscapes, and ecosystem restoration. So when I sort of speak about connecting landscapes and food systems, I come from the landscape research perspective to it, right? Let's see. This is my first slide, really. I've said most of it. I wanted to introduce my research group. I'm part of these people and some more, and I thought it's important to have them up here one time because I will draw on some examples of their research as well when I talk, and also we do a lot of work collaboratively, so I think it's important to highlight that. Okay, and with that I was actually going to start by taking you to my kitchen table in Berlin, and the reason is that when I got this task of talking about how to connect landscape and food systems, I was a little bit puzzled. So what am I going to say? And I was thinking about what are usually the landscape settings in which we actually work when we do research in our group. And I came up with 4 simplified settings. And my invitation would be that you just think along and see if they resonate. Maybe you have different ideas. So the very first setting I came up with was this situation where we have a food system and the landscape surrounding it being very closely coupled. And I think that's easy to imagine. It's kind of the smallholder system we talked about today. People shape the landscape by producing food. They eat the food from the landscape, perhaps. They also sell something. Then there's this very disconnected settings. Very simple example might be I came from Denmark yesterday, right? They produce a lot of pig meat for the kind of food system. They are not very connected to the local landscapes. They're connected through agricultural value chains, perhaps, but that's it. Then we have this kind of settings where the landscape is used very much for farming and the food system. So I was thinking of like big grain production areas, for example, but we might be interested in bridging that to other landscape values or other landscape functions. And we have the opposite setting, which is kind of my research at the moment, where we are intervening in landscapes, maybe for different reasons than food production. But of course, we always should have sort of the food system in mind if we want to connect. And I know this might be a bit abstract. It's just kind of to invite you to my thought process. And now I will kind of give examples of what I think about here. So this is the first from a PhD student I work with in Myanmar. And what she has done is to look at 3 native agroforestry species and how they link to diets in, smallholder diets in Myanmar in the dry zone. So this is an example of this tight connections. And what she sort of highlights in that article she just had out is that there's different pathways of connections we can think about. And I just took out one species here, which is the toddy palm tree that's very dominant in these landscapes. And there's a direct food pathway, which I think is sort of self-explanatory. So that's all the products from the toddy palm that you can harvest and eat directly, such as the kernel and the shoots. Then there's a second pathway that links this toddy palm and the landscape to food systems, which is energy from the palm. So people basically burn parts of the palms as a fuel, and they also use the ash of the palms as a fertilizer and crop production. Then there's an agroecological pathway. So this is actually the toddy palm I'm talking about. And under it, farmers cultivate groundnut or peanuts. And so here the link is kind of this agroecological link. So the palms create a really conducive environment for the crops that people then grow. And the last link is the income pathway, where products from this toddy palm, like a sugar sweet here, but also constructions material are used, for example, in the tourism industry. People make an income, and so they can purchase food and become consumers in the food system. So the takeaway I would like you to have from this example is that we think about connecting landscapes and food systems. We have to sort of have these different pathways of connection in mind. Okay, then 2 more examples. This on the left side stands for those high-intensive production systems I talked about, the pigs in Denmark. Obviously, that's not what you see on the image here, right? It's kind of the counter example. And this is also an example of me talking in a moment about an intensive agriculture production area. But to start here, this is from an article that was led by my colleague Claudia Heindorf, and we're trying to make an argument there about this intensive animal production systems are often viewed sort of as a problem or the evil we kind of need to solve at the moment, right, for sustainability reasons. And the argument we're trying to make is that maybe not all animals in landscapes are a problem. And in fact, maybe they can also be a solution in certain situations. And the example here is this cattle on pastures in the Alpine mountains. And what we highlight with this example is that in addition to producing food, those cattle or the cows in the landscape have a lot of other values and functions. So there's a lot of certified traditional cheese products from those cows, I think 8 different ones. They have a high tourism value, so people come to the region, to see those landscapes, to see the flowers associated with the cows. There's cultural traditions and festivals linked to it when the animals come down from the pastures. So there's a lot of value created in the landscape that's nothing to do directly with food production. So my takeaway here would be focus also on culture and traditions. And on this side, it doesn't look like much right now because it's winter on that picture, but it's one of these flower strips you get planted in very high intensive agricultural production areas, so like a cornfield. And then there's these agri-environmental schemes in the EU where the farmers get some money to plant flowers. And what's interesting with this research, I think from my colleague Jule Huber, is that she looks at schemes where this happens not with individual farmers, but at the landscape scale and collaboratively. And she's trying to find out how can we connect farmers in a good way to implement this together and to achieve kind of better outcomes, not just on one farm. So the takeaway there should be think about collaboration when we want to connect food system and landscapes. Okay, and this is already the very last example. So this is about a setting where I work now in Rwanda on ecosystem restoration. And here the focus for us in the project is not the food system, it's kind of biodiversity, bringing trees into the landscapes. But I think it's also an interesting example to reflect on these connections. Because what the government and NGOs has done is plant a lot of trees, and it can look differently. So this is just a lot of eucalyptus plantations that have been put in very successfully, one might say. but at least at first glance, this eucalyptus is not giving us a lot of food. Even though thinking back at the Myanmar example with those pathways is also not fully true, because charcoal made from eucalyptus is actually a very important fuel source in Rwanda. But nonetheless, if you talk to the farmers about which restoration practices do they really value, it's much more on this side, like the agroforestry practices where trees are integrated in the landscape. And then there is food benefits that can be just fruit from the trees directly, like avocados. But much more importantly, there's a lot of other kind of values or services from those trees and products that link to the food system. So for example, they're used for producing beans, which is an important cash and staple crop, a lot of branches from the trees to make the beans climb. They use the leaf mulch to kind of improve the soils. They grow fodder strips on the banks where the trees are planted on the terraces. And this fodder is used for the cows. The cows provide milk that can be eaten. It's a cash source to sell the milk. They use the manure from the cows in the home garden. So there's a lot of, food system links from having this integration of restoration in the landscape. So even though our main focus might not be to produce food, it's very important, I think, from this example to take this multifunctionality perspective in. Yeah, and then to sum up, I was sort of thinking, okay, what can we take from these examples for this reflection on how to connect landscape and food systems? And I came up with this sort of 3 key takeaways, but maybe also points to discuss or reflect on. So the first would be, do we account for these different connection pathways? Not just the direct food provision, but also the energy, the agroecology benefits. Do we think about how to leverage these cultural values and traditions associated with food systems and with landscapes? Do we collaborate enough? Who are the collaborators? And are we intervening when we do something in the landscape or in the food system that brings us towards this multifunctionality? Yeah, and not just one pathway or one product. Yeah, and with this, I hope I gave you some food for thought. That's my reflections on how to connect, and I hope we discuss much more, in the next hour.
So thank you so much, Laura, for this brilliant introduction. I think it's really good, and I will ask the tech team to bring us back to one of your pictures later on in the discussion. But are there any immediate questions you would like to ask to Laura while she's on? You can go sit, and then I'll call you up again.
Come back, yeah.
Okay. Again, questions? Everything crystal clear? And I said very lightly about agroforestry. We have worked a lot with agroforestry, and we take this very seriously, but I'm a little bit... so we have, and it's really very, very interesting to see these agroforestry systems, which I have had the pleasure to do, actually, to close. So yes, now, so with this was the start of the people. Laura will come back, and now I would like to introduce to you again, Clara Fischer. You maybe not need that thorough presentation, Clara, but you will present an example then of these kind of systems with what we call the nature-based solutions and how they contribute to the food systems, but also how they can contribute or not to livelihoods and the stewards of knowledge. So Laura, but you are presenting the work for one of your master students.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, you introduce her and yourself. Yeah.
Yes, and maybe I will just there. Yes, I'm presenting the work of Marta Cefaro, who was a master student in rural development and natural resource management, and she finished her thesis last summer. And Marta did an exchange with Nelson Mandela University in South Africa, and it was co-funded by SIANI. And as part of that co-funding, we're
presenting her work here today. But Marta is now working for an NGO called Capata that work to support communities in saying no to mining. So she's in Belgium and couldn't be here to present this herself. And I only have this slide actually. But Marta, yes, exactly. Marta's field work was in the rural Western Cape of South Africa, and she was engaging with a community of people who harvest honeybush. And honeybush is, probably many of you know rooibos. And honeybush is like rooibos. It's a plant that you make herbal tea from. But also other products. And honeybush has been known and used by Khoi and San communities for long times. I don't know since when. And Khoi San communities today have acknowledged traditional knowledge and competence on this honeybush. And there is ongoing processes in South Africa to establish functional access and benefit sharing arrangements around honeybush, but it hasn't come as far as with rooibos. So Marta did a case study on one community that engages in honeybush harvesting, and she wanted to see how does it work out for them. To what extent are they able to draw any benefits from the commercialization of honeybush that is going on at the moment? Because the honeybush industry has grown a lot since the 1990s, and it is quite, it's a popular herbal tea, and it's a growing market. And there are 9 different producers or processors and retailers of honeybush in the Eastern and Western Cape provinces in South Africa. So SOAR, the community where Marta worked, it's a former mission station that after apartheid has been has been part of land redistribution, and the governance of SOAR is a combination of the traditional governance and the Khoi San Traditional Council and the democratic system. And the people who live in SOAR are both people identifying as Khoi San and people not identifying as Khoi San. And what Marta found in a very short summary of her findings, and she has written a really nice blog on the SIANI webpage as well, so you can read her findings in summary in this blog, and you can read her full thesis. So the blog is in this link on the slide, and if you click on the blog, there is also a link to the thesis. But in summary, her conclusion is that at the moment, it's very difficult for these communities to actually make any significant benefits from harvesting honeybush for several reasons. There is a lot of tensions within the traditional authority, and this is not just one example of there being tension within the traditional governance in this case, but this tension within the traditional authority is an outcome of South Africa's history and the particular marginalization of Khoi San communities, and the fact that it's been very difficult for them to organize traditionally since South Africa became a democracy. And there is tensions between the traditional authority and the democratic system at local level, and there are disagreements and also legal lack of clarity or overlapping legal frameworks that make it unclear who actually has responsibility for land governance, which fuels the tension locally. But then also it's the fact that these communities are living in poverty and marginalization makes it difficult for them to actually capitalize on the commercialization, because they cannot afford and they don't have the investment opportunities to actually have their own processing facilities, so they need to sell to middlemen. They don't have a car, so they need to rent the car every time they harvest to actually go to the processing facility and so on. And both the market and the legal landscape is very sort of impenetrable to local people. it's difficult to understand, and it's not clear in itself, so it makes it difficult to navigate. So all of these things make it challenging at the moment to use honeybush as a pathway out of poverty in any relevant way. And Marta recommends that the ongoing access and benefit sharing discussions around honeybush should be informed by this and by the history of honeybush, where there have been similar problems, so that hopefully in the future there can be better possibilities for Khoisan communities to actually make some benefit from their traditional knowledge. Yes, that's it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Clara. And this is really a very specific region. I think it's the only region in the whole world where you could produce honeybush. Yes.
That it's endemic.
It's endemic. It's the
that
only
part
region.
of
So it's really an opportunity for these local people to have it as a to develop this value chain, but it is full of hurdles ahead, and I think it will take some time to resolve it, but it's good now that it's enlightened. Okay, now we are going to another nature-based solution in pollination, where we have two ex-researchers at SLU who are now working with the Federation of Swedish Farmers and at Folk University. I have a pleasure to introduce to you Hasita and Shishanti, who will present a case from Sri Lanka where they have worked with vulnerable communities and schools and looking at pollination and the potential for that.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shishanti, and together with Hasita, we are here to share our success story about a project that we could implement with the kind support of SIANI and SLU Global. And the project is empowering marginalized beekeepers in upcountry Sri Lanka. With the final objective of promoting food system sustainability, the goal of our project was to equip some selected marginalized youth communities with the necessary knowledge and equipment to practice beekeeping practices. In Sri Lanka, we have selected the Central Hills as our project site because that is the area that we have lush forests, which is ideal for beekeeping practices. And we have selected 60 school children as our project beneficiaries. The reason behind our decision was like we thought by selecting some young community, the impact that we made can last long, as well as the knowledge and skills that they take back home will actually benefit another generation. So with one try, we can target 2 generations by targeting the school children. And as the project approach, we use a participatory approach. So these young children were actually worked in groups, and 2 bee colonies and equipments were distributed among 4 participants, so they could work together in achieving their goal. So that is something that we wanted to try back in Sri Lanka by seeing how successful the community gardening system are here in Sweden. And this project was implemented in 3 phases, and Hasita will now walk you through different phases of this project.
Yes, just to quickly go through the different phases of the project. In the first phase, what we did was we went to the project sites just as a pre-planning steps where we need to do a need analysis and to understand the gaps in the project, where we should implement, what kind of training we should do in this community area. And then the second step was to do the capacity building activities, where we did capacity building of the selected beneficiaries to give the essential knowledge in beekeeping practices in these 2 project sites. And after the capacity building, we provide them the necessary practical skills where they needed to maintain the bee colonies, and as well as we gave the bee boxes and bee colonies. Thanks to the SIANI grant, we could give 2 participants get 1 bee colony where they could do participatory beekeeping practices. And then as a part of the project, we did training of trainers we collaborated with the local university, and we hired a group of students who are engaged in beekeeping practices from University of Peradeniya, and we took them to the National Bee Development Unit in Bindunuvawa in high hills of Sri Lanka, and we trained them to train in assessing and giving the necessary support and guidelines for the beekeepers in Sri Lanka or in this particular area. And afterwards, we went back to the sites exactly after 1 month from the project implementation to see how successful our young beekeepers are, and also as a way of giving first-hand advices if they face any issues in their beekeeping practices. And then we managed our legacy in our project by creating a WhatsApp group, and we just give quick support whenever they needed and whenever they encountered any problems with their bee colonies. And we did a baseline activity survey first before the project and after the project, and we see knowledge has increased and the interest in beekeeping has increased among this group. And after concluding this project, we were invited by this local university where we collaborated to do a seminar as a further dissemination of our activity. We did a knowledge dissemination awareness building about how we can do these beekeeping activities as a way of promoting the food system sustainability, especially in these vulnerable youth groups. Yes, so I managed to make it possible with this small 6 minutes time. Special thanks to Cecilia Global and SIANI for making this happen, and we are very glad that we could implement this project back in Sri Lanka, although we are based in Sweden, as our interest is also towards promoting food system sustainability back in Sri Lanka and in the whole world. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So thank you so much, and you can see you can say a lot on one slide. If you have the techniques with you, you can you can have so much presentation. That was a wonderful presentation, and I'm so happy that you are here with us. And also thank you for staying here in Sweden and contributing all your knowledge to the Swedish Farmer Federations and the Folk University. We will come back a little bit with more questions later on. We'll hear more about those communities and why you selected them and what is scaling up potentials and also how it's going with those bees. Yes, are there any direct questions to Hasi and Shishamat? Yes, Cecilia. Please, you can still come up here if you want to. Yeah, I pushed you down, so.
Thank you. Very interesting. And the children look very young, and they're mostly male. Will they continue to be beekeepers, and will there be girls involved as well? Thank you.
I think it was actually 50-50. Why the girls were not captured for the photos was like they were a bit hesitant at the very beginning to handle bees, but now they are doing great. So we have like 50-50 gender balance, and I agree they are pretty young, but yet have a very much interest in beekeeping. So
exactly. We have one more question. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Are those Africanized bees? Because you see people without any protection equipment there.
Yes, they can handle without any protection, but that's because we use smokers, and we provide the smokers and the bee hats also during the training to the participants when they are practicing at home. And since we're with experts, and none of the participants get bee stings, so there were no any accidents, and bees were Melisserana, so therefore they were mellifera. Yeah, so they were not that violent in that case. So none of the participants faced any problems.
They were collaborating well with us.
Yeah.
We have one more question. That's the last one for this batch. Oh, yeah, sorry. So we have one more here. Yeah.
Thanks, very interesting. Could you say one word on what's happening with the produce, the marketing for honey, etc.?
Yes, that's a very good question because the area that we selected is the Knuckles forest area in the central hills of the Sri Lanka, the area called Mimure, and that is a very local tourist attracted area where a lot of locals would love to go to this area, and whenever they go there they have local farm market which operates in every Saturday, and they can sell it there, and that generate an additional income to the school kids where they can support their some money whatever they want to do in the school.
Okay, one more question. I promised that one. Yeah. Sorry.
Was there any common issues that came to surface when you were gone for a month?
Common issues in
Like if there were any questions that they had during the month they had to practice,
yes.
yeah.
Yes, there were like some issues where bee colonies sometimes trying to escape because sometimes if the colony conditions are not that conducive, so the bees are going to leave the colony. And of course, the trainers that we trained, they provided how the bee gate should be kept, and in case if the bees get stressed during the relocation into this particular area, because bees were breed in one location and they were relocated into this project area, and then bees definitely get stressed, and during those adaptation periods bees usually try to escape from the colony. So we should need to provide any additional sugars or something like that just to keep them less stress during the relocation time, and when we adapt those things, so the bee colonies will remain or retain in the hives.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank
You
you.
have the opportunity to come back, and you
Yeah.
should also have a conversation with Paul. He has a lot of knowledge about bees
Yeah.
from Sri Lanka and the kind of flowers you have to have. You have to have a flower calendar. So that's the next step, I think. Right, maybe, could be. Now, we're going to do, last year, or we started already 2016 on request from SLU Alnarp to support something called the Agroecology Day. And we have supported that day. Is a student-led activity. And they have been having a day every year. And we have supported them with connecting them to the more global visions and networks. And but this agroecology student and course is very dynamic, and they actually established a farm on agroecology at the university campus, or a little bit outside, still within the premises, and it's now a farm. And last year, we decided at SIANI maybe we should look closer to see what kind of practices and principles that's happening at that farm. And today, that was a real success. We can bring that back to you, or you can read about it. There's a lot about it on our website. It's called ASAP, and you can talk to Aslis also. But now we are going to listen to the two students, Leon and Marie Claire, and they are going to present to us why they think that maybe their food system would be very appropriate to connect in the landscape, and what kind of ecosystem services you will find on those kind of farms. Please, enter the stage.
Yes. Hi, I'm going to present, and Leon's going to be my spirit animal. So hi. I'm Claire, and I'm going to talk about our farm. So we are a non-for-profit organization with a small-scale horticultural farm based on SLU campus in Alnarp. And the project got started by 4 agroecology students who were very frustrated with the lack of practice in their course, because you get told that you're going to advise farmers, but you've never grown a carrot yourself. So they started a project and a farm that really tried to push the boundaries of agroecology and really tried to find holistic solutions to systemic issues of the food system. So they started with a 400 square meter farm and a diversified market gardening and CSA, or Andelsjordbruk in Swedish. And what started small kind of grew out of hand very fast, because more students from different programs joined, more from SLU, and all of a sudden we had people from Lund passing by the farm, and a lot of people from Malmö University came and joined us as well. And by now we are 250 people in our volunteer list that join our regular open voluntary sessions and learn on how to actually grow agroecologically. So we outgrew our old plot, and by now we have a 2,000 square meter diversified market garden scheme. We planted more than 1,000 trees, and we are producing around 4.5 tons of food for around 100 CSA shares, which is small families, basically. Yes. Everything is also community-led. That means we run a board of up to 12 people with a very diverse background also. We host interns, we foster research with several thesis projects, and we give lectures at universities and tours as well. But also this year, the biggest jump was tapping more into the movement part and this advocacy part of agroecology, because that's really incremental for agroecology. And so with the help of SIANI and the project ASAP, which you can also read about in the leaflets outside, we had the opportunity to go to the FAO World Food Forum, and Leon was able to present his thesis on enhancing biological soil health at the FAO. We also did more advocacy, so I had the chance to actually talk to the new commissioner of agriculture and rural development in Brussels in December, really advocating for agroecology. And we joined ECVC and Nordbrück and really tried to push the boundaries there as well. And to conclude, I really felt what Clara said earlier about the humbleness. I think there's nothing more humbling than actually starting to work as an agroecological farmer, especially if you're financially independent, and that doesn't come without its challenges and controversies. But yeah, just emphasizing that we need more trial and error space for young people to practice and bridge the gap between theory and practice of agroecology.
So we will call you others up on stage, but first, are there any direct questions here to Marie-Claire and Leon? Oh, you know everything about agroecology. No, not everyone. So Clara, please.
Can you say, should I, oh, you can switch, yeah, okay. Can you say, maybe there are several things, but if you can say one thing that that you were surprised by, like after studying agroecology and then starting to practice it, can you mention one aha moment where there was like you thought you had the knowledge, but then when you start practicing you realize you didn't?
I think the financial viability part. And actually learning, like a lot of people said, prove that it's financially viable. And then we tried to prove it, but it was so contradictory with the work that we were doing. So a lot of the work we do is not profitable in itself. So that's a big thing.
And maybe I can add on it. I have a farming background, so a lot of the farming I sort of could imagine beforehand. But one important aspect, and Claire mentioned it before, is that we're not only farming vegetables, but we're also farming a community. And I think I underestimated how much work it takes and how rewarding it is when you do it well.
Okay. You now, please. Yes, but we don't have a... is there a mic?
Yeah, I was just curious because it was mentioned in the first presentation about collaboration when you look at food systems and landscapes and sort of the need to collaborate in the landscape, so basically across farms. And I was just curious to know in the region where you are, how you have experienced that, since it's maybe most farms are more intensive than your farm. So do you have any sort of experience or thoughts around having that sort of landscape perspective and collaboration?
I would say we are sort of... I think that's almost different target groups and different people shaping landscapes on different scales. And I said it before, we're the nanoscale. We're below a hectare. And so a lot of people don't consider us farmers. That said, there's a lot of farmers like us in the Malmö region. So there is sort of a good connection to peri-urban farmers that we foster also. But then there's not a lot of connections to other farmers surrounding us, which I feel like is also a common problem, that there's just too little collaboration and too little knowledge exchange actually in the end. There's a lot of questions that we had in the front and we had to figure them out ourselves. And if we would have asked local people around us, maybe we would have had an easier time.
Yes, very interesting reflections, I think. I think it makes us also recall the presentation of Clara this morning with the silos, which is very, I mean, it's very visible if you go down to Alnarp and where it's located. So you have the big fields with monoculture and then you have this farm. But it's a good start to just start to think about this conversation. Now, can we make space for the other landscape people? And I would like to ask the tech team if you could bring back Laura's presentation, the first, the picture with a different, how you connect agriculture to the landscape. This one's okay. Yeah, okay, please come. So we have here, so I just wanted to start a conversation with you, reflecting a little bit on, I think we have seen examples on where the integration is coming on and where we can see potentials, but we can also understand that there are hurdles and there are also potentials for more connections and so forth. But in this scale, so Laura, where you have listened to this presentation, so where would you place them then in your theoretical basis here?
Good question. I mean, I would hope Alnarp farm goes up in that connected coupled corner, right? Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, because the bees I don't have enough context about, right? I mean, it's a food system thing, and then they interact with the landscape surrounding. I'm pretty sure maybe you're a better place to figure it out.
I think it should be the setting one.
Okay, setting one. Yeah, well, it's not a, you know, it's not a essential quiz, this, but assess yourself in the theoretical framework. And Clara, where would you find your research and Marta's work?
I think I am taking on the hat of Marta's work when I stand here, otherwise it becomes too confusing. But can you, Laura, can you remind me about this setting?
Landscapes where we do something else and they link to food systems. So maybe you have a landscape where you want to build the tea, but
yeah, and the tea grows naturally, but it's also starting to become cultivated. And yeah, maybe there.
No, I thought it was really good when I saw this presentation to understand the connections and how it is interconnected and how it contributes to the landscape. So we have seen now also this presentation. So from your perspective then, how would you say that we can, what would be a good pathway of scaling up from the experiences, and what would you scale up in your experiences? What would you like people to learn, to bring from them, from what you have been doing? So let's start with the farmers.
I think the learning experience from us is that the peri-urban setting works really well with the small-scale agriculture, I would say, and especially with the market gardening scheme. You have a lot of labor force, you have the direct producer-to-consumer relationships. People tend to be very interested there, and I feel like this belt around bigger cities of landscapes with smaller scale farmers, and then moving outside, maybe a bit bigger scale, maybe diversified systems with crop rotations, and then having these synergies, because sometimes it doesn't make sense, for example, for us to grow potatoes or I don't know, grains, for example, is just not something we also should do. So I think there's a lot of linkage to localized peri-urban food systems.
And maybe I would add on it the agency that it provides. It's really hard to include young people into farming. There's this common problem that we have that farmers are getting too old. Access to land is something that is much easier provided for small farms than for big farms. And this is something that we're also seeing with the strong voluntary base that we have. People are generally very interested in farming, but sort of not repeating status quo. And that's something that we are definitely harvesting also. Young, motivated people that want to continue farming.
Just to say that the event where you were invited, the World Food Forum, is actually an event for young people, for bringing forward young people and encouraging young people into agriculture and connect them. So let's go to Sri Lanka then, and understanding what you have learned and how would you like to see this scaling up or scaling out more, and also reflecting on young people, I think.
Yes. There are many different ways where our project can be scaled up. In the first possible way, we want to expand the project into different agroecological zones, because Sri Lanka, although it's a small tropical island, the agroecological zones and the setup where the flora and fauna is very different from one location to another location. So we want to try and see how beekeeping can be adapted in participatory approach with the youth engagement in different agroecological zones, and how they can manage what kind of specific problems they face in such adaptations and so on. That is one way we want to scale up, by adapting to into bigger picture of Sri Lankan context. And in the second way, our approach would be to develop market-oriented bee projects, where we want to not just be honey for self-consumption or just for only their household, but we wanted to expand it to do a little bit of market oriented, where they produce bee not only for consumption but also for selling, and therefore they get extra income which supports the livelihoods of these marginalized communities. And that is what I would think.
Yes, I would also think about increasing the knowledge and skills, because that is also kind of lacking back in Sri Lanka. So if it would be great if we also can provide some additional knowledge, support, training programs, etc., so that people can be more interested towards beekeeping. And of course, it is also very much important to identify the role of bees, not only as honey producers, but also as pollinators that will increase the crop yield as a whole. So this kind of aspects I would think is important if we want to scale up.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much. And over then to yes, please. Okay.
Sorry.
Yes.
I was
Please.
thinking about this scale out and scale up.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say also that I think that not everything that is good shouldn't always be scaled up or scaled out. That if we talk about resilience, diversity is very important for resilience, and things can be very good in the size that they are and contribute to something. So that we, and in the honeybush case, I think scaling up is not necessarily a solution, because that would lead to more cultivation of honeybush instead of wild harvesting, and indigenous people are not engaged in the cultivation process, and also cultivation occurs in monoculture, and it doesn't contribute to preserving the landscape where the honeybush grows at the moment. And maybe it's rather about shifting who benefits from it in the value chain.
Yeah, I think that is a very important example from South Africa. It's very specific. It cannot be more specific, I think. But we have a lot of other crops or plants that are very endemic in certain places, and also in the steward, there are the indigenous people and local people who knows about it and how to benefit from it. And there are issues with land, specifically in South Africa. I would say probably most land, but there are also the specifics with genetic resources and how to protect that to the people in case. So maybe I was a little bit hasty as always with scaling up, but it's sometimes what I also meant was like the learnings and amplifying of the example so that we can learn from that. That is very important, and that's what we're trying to do also. But it's important. So Laura, from your research and your colleagues, so what would you say then also? A little bit cautious with scaling up, but more, amplifying the examples and learning from them. Are we doing it enough, or?
I mean, I really like at the moment, I think this idea with the culture and the traditional practices, because I think it's something that connects and can scale. That's not just, the food product. Now I was thinking of this honeybush case where it's like, okay, maybe you don't need to produce a lot more honeybush, but maybe you can also promote things around it. Like the practices that people can come and see how it's done, or there can be a festival of the honeybush where people visit. And that's, again, it comes with a risk. I mean, you also don't want to have a production landscape that becomes like a tourist Disneyland, right? But I think there's opportunities around those things. We have discussed that also for a place in Morocco where we do research, where it's like, okay, there's traditional tree systems, and then you can maybe not just sell the products, which are niche market, but you can also sell or promote or leverage all those traditions and practices around it that are part of shaping those unique landscapes, I think. So there's, a traditional cheese production, a traditional way in Sweden to grow vegetables, maybe that's not just the product itself. So I like that idea, I think.
And so do we have any questions here on the floor? So I'm opening up for you. Many of you are working in this interface, researching or with communities, and we are talking about vulnerable communities also. We're talking about many times forest communities and also smallholders that actually do some agroecology in practice. The smallholder farmers are more likely so far in the agroecology. We might hear with the researchers here, they might have, but it's. So we are also talking about vulnerability issues, but I open up for you now to, if you have questions and want to know a little bit more, please raise your hand. Yeah, coming up.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting to hear about your farm down in Alnarp. And you told us how you started, which sort of was basically a stamp-sized farm, and now you've sort of grown and you have all these people who are interested. What is your ultimate aim? Is it to be regarded as a farmer by those farmers around you who I understood that they're laughing at you, or what are you sort of, in 10 years' time, what will your farm look like? Because you will have left then and there'll be other students there.
Oh, I mean, I really hope that it still exists. I think it just makes sense in an agricultural university that teaches agroecology to also have an agroecological farm. I really hope that we found spaces to talk to maybe also conventional farmers, like actually really having space to talk, for example, to the Landmasteriet, and that we found ways to collaborate and work in synergies together. I really hope that we have stabilized so much that people can actually make a living out of this, that is actually dignified. Hopefully livestock, that's also a big thing. Take some argument with SLU if we can have livestock. But yeah, just a beautiful, thriving hub for trial and error.
Yeah, maybe to add on that, I've been thinking about it a lot. Like, how would I like academia to sort of contribute to sustainable education in the future? What I would like the Alnarps farm to become is like a lighthouse model farm that encourages people. So that's definitely something that I wish for in the next 10 years. And I would sort of like to become a recognized education site of some kind, included into research for academia, but then also for young people that sort of finish their master program in agroecology or horticultural sciences or whatever agriculture related, and they sort of take a step in between entering the professional market to come and apply their knowledge and try it out, get an insight, and then from there out take it into the real world. That's something that I would dream for.
Lighthouse farm. That's nice. Yes.
Mhm.
And I'm very happy because I know Sofia has been sitting here the whole time and asking about livestock and animals. Isn't it, Sofia? Sister. But it's coming up. It's also part of the agroecology system, but not in Alnarp. So we have
Not
to
yet.
Not yet.
You see, we look at these principles and we look at one by one, and then it was about animal health and welfare, and there was a big dog. So there is something missing. So we are looking forward to see some hens or goats or whatever. But it's so good. It's really to congratulate the hard work that you are doing. It's wonderful. Now I saw Mats had a question, and Göte is on the next.
Yes, thanks a lot. Interesting. First, on scaling up, scaling out, yes, I agree that you need to do that carefully, but you need to do that. We cannot just work project-based to solve the issues. Then, on we are talking about nature-based solutions, etc. And you mentioned now the pollination services that you have in beekeeping, and this is one example. And if you have some words on if you have any experiences of models for having that, priced, having it, the usefulness being paid by others. I know that is very difficult to find models if it's not from the government, from the state. But if you have any models that could be of interest in this context, thanks.
We have not particularly worked on that aspects to create a model that incorporate the holistic approach of the environmental services and other all ecosystem services when we are pricing the bee honey. So that work we have not done, but that is something that we would definitely like to do in the future, because this is implemented only one single location of Sri Lanka. So we definitely want to scale up this project, and if the SIANI or if the expert group project would be granted on this aspect to continue in the future, so definitely something that we would like to incorporate when we are creating the value for this bee honey, to incorporate other aspects also into this new pricing model to count the environmental services and also other aspects about the beekeeping into it. But that is not up to yet.
No, but we have another expert group looking at pollination. Do you have something to say on pollination, Paul? We can have a microphone over here because we are such resourceful network, so we can go to other expert and we have them in the room. So
yeah, the expert group has looked at that, and there's such general lack of knowledge maybe amongst many farmers that bees are doing something positive. The common conception is the opposite, that it's a pest. So we've tried to at least survey what is the knowledge, and there are some farmers that are placing their beehives in other farmers' crops and receiving some income for that purpose, but it's very little. It's a huge area in which it can be expanded, that the beekeeper is doing the crop production a favor. So for sure, I would say that's a very productive area to focus on in the future.
Definitely.
With high potential, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. We have now also from the animal side, maybe we have Göte here to ask some question also with a background at least on husbandry.
Thanks for the word. Well, I'm not going to tell you the story about the cattle in Alnarp.
But cattle's in our...
Those that were there once. Nevertheless, I'm impressed, I should say, by your vision, fascinated by your vision for your farm in the future, with demonstration, education and research and all those purposes. So that's fascinating. I would like to ask you, there are a couple of principles and standards that we do have for farming. When I listen to what you are doing there, I'm thinking about, I think quite a few organic farms in Sweden that are managing their farm more or less in the same way as you are doing there, in sometimes bigger or sometimes even smaller scale. So I just wanted to ask, do you follow any specific standards, like standards for organic farming, biodynamics, or you try to develop a standard perhaps that better suits your conditions and sort of resources or ideas where you are?
The land that we are established on is craft certified since 40 years. So officially we are craft certified. We lost our craft certification because we added too much compost. Now we're organic certified. That's the true reality. I would say we don't really, I mean, we follow the organic principles because we want to maintain the organic certification, and that's also not negotiable to change that, basically. But we're sort of trying to push the boundaries of agroecology ongoingly, and that's great to be so closely connected to academia because we do get a lot of researcher inputs all the time. Try this out. This could be a new idea of handling this problem, as long as it fits in the organic framework, of course. So somebody once threw the term beyond organic at me. I'm not sure. I did like it.
Yeah, and we oftentimes have hypercritically very motivated, idealistic new students coming to the farm and needing to do farming analysis. So that's always also a good control mechanism. Yeah, so the 13 principles of agroecology is something that we value as well.
Yeah, for maybe for Göte, I think it was 2019, it was established at FIO and through a CFS HLP report, the 13 principles on agroecology. And this is the basis why we took those, because we only think, imagine, that agroecology can look super different in different parts of the world. So we wanted to kind of make, explore different cases. And it was very easy to go to Arna's farm because it was there on the university and we started out there. So that's where this ASAP. So we look at the farm, what principles are we following, what practices are we following, and now we scale. We are doing that with different farms. We have documented farms in Brazil, so we are in Norway, in Australia, we're doing in Nepal, but we are also now developed some kind of rapid assessment as well. So we'll see where it takes us, but we are fully aware of that it can look very different, and it can also look very different landscapes where these farms are situated and the kind of social interactions. It's, however, super interesting, so we'll hear more about that in the future. Okay, more questions? Right, so...
there was one.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, thinking a bit about the pricing models that we have globally around food systems and the commodities that we produce. And as I see it, you're providing an added benefit, for example, through agroecological farming, but also through bush cultivation. That also means that you have to put in a little bit more labor, you have to do something else extra. Do you think that our current pricing models that we are trying to compete with are fundamentally flawed? And what are your ideas around developing new funding models that can help sustain these agroecological systems and bush production systems and otherwise that provide added benefits for nature and the local livelihoods? Yeah.
They're looking at me, but I think Leon should say something about this because he already talked about it in our group.
Yeah, I think that's the best question to ask, honestly. And you will have to cut me off because I will probably...
We had 10 minutes from the start, but we're only 5.
Yeah. Okay. I fully agree. I think our system... Okay. My personal opinion, just to state that up front, is that the current food system and the pricing mechanisms are fundamentally flawed. And it's sort of... Yeah. It's gone from production of the masses to a mass production. And quality is not the leading principle anymore, but quantity. And extraction is the leading quantity. You know all of this. So I fully agree with the fact that it takes a lot more work to do it different than the status quo. And we're not really compensated for this work. It's also an unequal game. How are we supposed to compete against international markets in Sweden with hand labor, without machinery? That's just bizarre, and it's never going to work. But at the same time, we invest a lot more environmental stewardship into the piece of land that we're working on. We're providing a lot of ecosystem services and benefits for the community and services to the community as a whole, which is sort of harvested by the community also. There is no monetary value for all this, what we're providing. And that's why I also earlier said that I personally hope that there will be a moment where we price unsustainable practices accordingly, and that might favor consumer choices towards more sustainable productions. And then I think there's many ways about how we could employ farmers rather than to compete on the global market, to just provide food for local communities, for example. That would be community money that's getting distributed, tax money essentially. But I think there's a floor is open for a long conversation.
We don't have that much, but I would give you, I will give you all chance to comment that, and then we will, after that, we will close the panel, and you can continue at the mingle. We are soon closing up the whole session. So, Clara, do you have any comment on this as well? Now, these people you are working with, they need money also. They want to sell as well.
Yes, but I was thinking about also another case and a study I did together with Elin Rös on the framing of sustainability in Swedish beef farming, and the idea about if we need to eat less but better meat, how that's going to work, and it's not going to happen just through the market. And there are lots of examples like that when we cannot just leave it up to the market or say that farmers should become more entrepreneurial and this will solve it. But this is not really, I agree with what Leon said, but I'm not a researcher on value chains, so it's not my expertise.
No, it was one that asked that question, but still, we let her try. So what are you thoughts about this and the pricing?
I think we gave the answer regarding the pricing. Of course, the unsustainable practices should be negatively marketed or negatively priced in that way, and sustainable practices should be incorporated into the model. That is our idea regarding the pricing.
And how does that sound for a landscape agriculture researcher, and with your vision? How do you see it? Because these are the realities then we are faced with.
I think to me a big starting point, and I'm not a pricing person, but it's just realizing all those other values, and that's what you kind of talked about. Like there's benefits to the society. I try to talk about the certain landscapes are good to look at, right? Or they make us feel at home, or they make us feel connected. And I'm not sure we're ever going to capture all those things in monetary terms, and maybe we shouldn't, but we need to sort of make those values also visible, I think. And all the problems that are generated by other systems. To me, that's a big... I think a lot could come just from that already.
Yeah. Okay, so why don't we give this panel and all these good speakers a round of applause? And thank you. You can go back to your seat. And so this was also a way of kind of displaying and showing you how we are within the networks very interlinked in research and activities and so it was this afternoon session to bridge the two networks. We are collaborating, we are participating in each other's activities, and we are very interconnected. And what was from the beginning very difficult to see where we would meet is quite evident now. It's becoming, it has passed 10 years, but it's very clearly, and we could see this in this afternoon session. And I hope also that some of you who have been here today have some time to attend the Focali session tomorrow, and that some of you Focali researcher might come back or come back to our sessions in the future. Now, I wanted to round up this day that has been very exciting, and we have tried to display what SIANI does and the key activities. So we have like 3 big chunks of activities that we're trying to have some impact on. And one is this dialogues between sectors, and you have been part of that today, and you have also listened to different sectors and different, so please. Across the sectors and across the topics. And the other activity that we are doing are the expert groups. And I think we had a very brilliant presentations on the new expert groups and the expert groups that are closing and looking forward to new opportunities. We know that our environment and surrounding and context is rough. But we have to be resilient. We're working towards resilience in all aspects. That goes for researchers in this field in Sweden as well. And then we then have also a very important part, which is the communication, and it has been displayed in different ways, how we try to amplify voices and cases. We had this about the honeybush, how we communicate about it, and the importance that we actually play. And surprisingly, when we go outside of Sweden, a lot of people knows about SIANI, much more than I would think. But I think we are sometimes in this context where we work, we are more known outside Sweden than in Sweden. And last but not least is the whole network. So those are the areas, and those are the areas where we have been kind of interacting, and you have a touchdown in what we are doing and so forth. So we have a year ahead of us, and it started out in a mysterious way. Cecilia mentioned some of it in her introduction. It is a tough year, but we have some good things to look forward to. So one of our highlights of the year will be the Agri4D conference. We are doing it the 10th time. So there will be some celebrations, and it will be on the 23rd, 25th of September. Hope to see you all. It's for everyone to come and join. We will actually have it in hybrid, because we have had very successful online conferences. We were forced to do that because of the pandemic, but it turned out that we thought it was very inclusive, and we had great participation from countries outside of Sweden, and specifically in low and middle income countries. We were overwhelmed with the participation. But this year, because of what's happening, we feel the need of also meeting in person. It's a supportive act, kind of good to be together to discuss. And the theme of our conference will be nurturing regenerative food system in a changing climate. So think about that. There will be a call in March, and we hope that you are encouraged to apply and submit an abstract, and also your colleagues, and you are also welcome to propose panels and sessions, whatever. But stay tuned on our website or website of the SLU Global. You will also be able to meet us in different contexts and at different venues. Here are some examples from last year. Of course, there's also the farm here. It's something that happened on the farm, but we were out in Husby with Reformata. I don't know if they're still here. We were at the book fair. We're in Rome, and so there's a lot of activities. So we will have events, and you can find what's happening on the website. And then, very importantly, you can always follow us and read us. I will not put up a display of how successful we are on social media, because these days social media is nothing to be. We don't know where we are actually. But I think you will be following us after like a blue butterfly. It's coming up on the website. Maybe that is a better social media than the X one. And so we're trying to see what we can do, but I'm not going. But for sure, website is there, good stories. You can read about them here. You can see all kind of blogs and news, and from the expert groups and from research or from other news coming up, and also opportunities. We will also continue to publish stories, publications. We have the ASAP stories are coming up, but there will be an interesting publication from coming in from the network and coming in from team members. So continue to read and stay with us. And here, what we had also a survey where we ask everyone who cannot come to this room what they think about SIANI and what they like, and they really like our newsletter. So, and I think that is probably a way where we will continue to, or maybe even reinforce, because of the kind of social media confusion. Maybe newsletter is a secure way of getting your news and updates. And this is, of course, a youth-led activity that we had in Rome. You see the back of Leon, who was chairing the whole session and doing a good job. But it's part of a newsletter that came out after that. Yes, so, well, I'm ahead of time, but I probably need it if I would mention all people that have joined us today, and all the presenters, and all the expert groups, and all my colleagues, and all the supportive team from SCI Communication that have been organizing this. We have Öykü, who is a star of coordination all this. And we have supreme support from Black Box always. They are doing this so you can watch everything after. You can see presentations, and you can see the one-picture presentations maybe also. And we will make it available as much as we can. And for you, you know, that has to go out from this nice cuddly room with friends and whatever, you know, just keep calm and carry on, because we will always need food. We are in the right sector, and it's up to us to make it resilient and sustainable. So thank you all for joining us today.